All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live edition of the Global Reality right here on the Oracle Broadcasting Network. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. This is the Thursday, May the 14th, 2009 edition of the broadcast. Glad you all could be with us for this Thursday show here. And, boy, we can tell you what, we got a lot of news today. Big old gigantic honking stack of news today to get into. Ladies and gentlemen, here on the show today, and we are going to get into all of it. Yesterday, towards the end of the show, I was reading the very extensive amount of research pertaining to the John Birch Society, the Western Goals Foundation, the Knights of Malta, and I've got some of that I want to finish up later in the broadcast today as well as I want to get through all of that. So we'll finish that today, and who knows what else we'll get into. Thursdays, well, it's always an open show, but tomorrow's Free for All Friday, so that's the show you don't know what's going to happen, but nonetheless, we'll have wide open phone lines for you today throughout the duration of the broadcast at 512-904-8014. Toll free internationally as well at 1-866-841-1065. And those are the numbers to get you up on the air. They're posted up at oraclebroadcasting.com, where the chat room is open as well today. And there's lots of chatters in there. Lots of people starting to file in for the show. So big shout out to everybody in the Oracle Broadcasting.com chat room. I see Cordy in there. I see Sexy Face in there. I see Mystic Politics in there. I see Donna Van Meter in there. I see Ban Jovi in there. So we'd like to see Karen's in there as well. There's Karen. So we'd like to see all you in there as well today in the chat. And we'll be getting into lots of stuff, lots of interesting news stories today. I don't even know where to start. We've got so much news, so much to talk about and to get into. So I'll just be going through here and picking and choosing through some of my news to talk about today on the show. So also a big quick update on oh, there's Doug. Dirty Dougie. Doug, are you playing hooky? Tell the truth, son. Are you playing hooky, Doug? I always think when I see my boy Dirty Dougie in the chat room, I'm like, somebody's playing hooky. But nonetheless, tons of news to get into today. But quick update. Yesterday, we sent out a whole another batch of Seeker Right DVDs that people had ordered. So we're caught up on shipping all the way until May 1st. So everybody that ordered up until May 1st, your DVD has been sent out. So I only got just a few left. Everybody's who's ordered this month, yours hasn't been sent yet from May 1st on, but those will be being sent out sometime in the next week. So everybody's got a Doug says, shh. Oh, busted. Nonetheless, I probably shouldn't be saying this blasting out over the airwaves where Doug lives, should I? Oops. Doug, I'm sorry you're sick today, my friend. Sorry, I didn't know you were sick there. Doug's sick. Yes, he's deathly, gravely ill. He may have the swine flu. Sorry, Doug. I didn't mean to imply that you may be playing hooky. I know that you're sick. Thank you. There you go. So, but nonetheless, we got a lot of stuff to get into. But I saw this the other day, and I didn't cover this. It seems that the GOP is playing. GOP Go's playing Tea Party sequel. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, once was not enough. You thought it was over. Tea Party 2, Electric Boogaloo, coming. This time, it's personal. So now another teabag party's coming. Hoping to recapture the grassroots energy of last month's Tea Parties. Republican Governor Mark Sanford, the Bilderberg Council for National Policy member of South Carolina. Imagine that. Wow. Well, these Tea Parties, we knew they were funded by all these Council for National Policy types like Dick Armey and the Heritage Foundation. Just everything that's been ensconced within the Council for National Policy for years. And here we are yet again. So Mark Sanford and Rick Perry will host a teletown hall meeting Thursday. It's being dubbed Tea Party 2.0. Oh, great. That's just wonderful. But But yeah, I do need to mention that. Yesterday, I became an uncle. Last night, my brother Jake and his woman Mandy, she gave birth to a brand new little girl, and there's now a 8 pound 2 ounces, 17.5 inches, and a new Reeves has been brought into the world. Mackenzie Lynn Reeves. So big shout out there to my new niece, and that's awesome. So, and she's very cool. Got to hold her and all that stuff right after. It's amazing how cognitive she was. I mean, babies can't see. They can see nothing but light and sound and whatnot when they're, immediately born. But it was amazing. I mean, she wasn't even crying. She was very calm. Just kind of looking around. I've never seen a baby act like that. It was really amazing. So there you go. So that's awesome for me. And again, more, this just really very cool to see that, and to see the continuation of life happen. But nonetheless, yeah, I just want to mention that briefly. And and another quick note. Last night I was supposed to be on the Midnight Rider program with Mike Chambers. A lot of you may have tuned in to hear me on that program. And when I got home from the hospital, I noticed it was a rebroadcast. They were having some serious storms last night. I looked at the weather radar, and the whole entire state of Oklahoma was covered in this big red blob of storms. And I know they had some tornadoes in Missouri, in western Missouri, that killed some people. So, so that's what it is. And I'm sure me and Mike will be rescheduling that and doing that at another day. Maybe we'll do it tonight. I don't know. We'll have to say. We'll see what's on Mike's table and see if he's around. If he's into the show. Maybe he'll be on there tonight. We'll have to see what happens. But if Mike is doing the show tonight, doesn't have anything else booked, then we'll probably be doing that tonight. I'll just have to talk to him and see what happens, and then just check MySpace tonight or something. If you're my friend on MySpace, and I'll put out a bulletin on that. But nonetheless, let's get back into some news. But yes, I watched that film, The Knowing, a couple of weeks ago. Very interesting film there. The Palladians at the end and whatnot. Yeah, very interesting film. I suggest everybody check that film out. Yeah, very interesting stuff there. The Illuminati scaring the you-know-what out of you every day. Right. Public service announcement. Well, I mean, this is ridiculous. The bill, the American Clean Energy Security Act, would place a limit on heat-trapping gases, and for the first time, reduce fossil fuels by boosting energy efficiency and requiring more electricity be produced from renewable sources. While these goals are endorsed by President Barack Obama, the legislation faced opposed from the fellow Democrats in coal, oil, and industry states, jeopardizing its chances of making it out of committee. And while these goals are endorsed by President Barack Obama, the legislation faced opposition from fellow Democrats in coal, oil, and industry states. And look, I mean, there's no reason. It's just there's no reason why anybody should buy into this whole global warming hysteria anymore. I mean, it's ridiculous. And I mean, I'm wondering how they're going to try to neutralize the great cooling that's going on. How they're going to try to explain that away. But of course, with these chemtrails and whatnot and trapping the heat down at the ground level, I guess that they're able to do that. But I mean, I tell you what, I don't know if anybody's noticed. I don't know if it's been this way where you live, but where I live over the past, pretty much since the outbreak of the deadly swine flu, it's been they've been graying it out almost every day here. Very little sunshine. We had a little bit of sunshine yesterday, and that's about as much as we've had in about 3 weeks. It's been crazy, and there's been amazing chemtrail spraying. I mean, they've really been really whiting it out here. And they had to change it from global warming to climate change, right? Because nobody's buying that, then that it's getting warmer. They had to change it to climate change because that's what's going on. But it's going to be funny to see how they do this. It's going to be funny to see how how they're able to negate this. Because, I mean, it's getting out there, and people are starting to figure out what's going on. It's amazing how many people are chemtrail aware now. That's amazing to me. And, of course, about a month ago we had that story where it said, Obama is now saying that they may geoengineer the climate. They may spray substances into the atmosphere to geoengineer it to save us from global warming. Of course, we know they've been doing that for years. But you see how they're preemptively now going to try to find a way to admit that they're doing it? Because there's a lot of people that are chemtrail awake now. I mean, I know so many people that really don't know anything about, the stuff that we talk about on these type of shows and New World Order research and anything. But boy, they figured it out about chemtrails. And you know what? Chemtrails was really an issue for me that I was able to wake up a lot of people with to other issues. It was really a wedge issue for me to show people, hey, look at what's going on here. Certainly, I mean, my dad, I tried to slowly bring my dad into a lot of this stuff throughout the years and try to get him to look at it. Because at first, you just wouldn't want to hear any of it, especially the 9/11 stuff. Then I showed him more and more and more, and he started looking at it. And I caught him out one time a year or two ago. I caught him out. He was out telling the neighbor about Building 7. You ever see that Building 7? You ever seen that thing? You don't think that thing came down by itself, didn't you? They didn't even hit it with a plane. And I caught him out telling the neighbors about the chemtrails one day, But the chemtrails really are an amazing issue because, I mean, you look at it and you just, all you really have to say to somebody who doesn't know what's going on is, look, do you think that's a commercial airliner flying to go see Grandma and Grandpa? I don't think so. But the different things about that is the fact that these things where you're able to see X patterns, grid patterns. These are things that didn't exist 10, 15 years ago. Certainly, we started seeing chemtrails around 1999, right around that time. But really, I'm somebody that's always looked at the sky and always kept my eye on what's going on up there. Always, since I was little. So, I mean, I can remember, I look at pictures back when I was a kid and you see these clouds and stuff. You're like, man, where did those skies go? We don't see those skies like that anymore. Blue skies with big puffy cirrus clouds. I mean, those are gone. And now it's just turned into this gray, goopy mush. It's ridiculous. All right, more on the other side, folks. This is the Global Reality. Stay with us. Back here with you on the Global Reality on this Thursday. I just don't know what freaking day it is. Michael Vale. Oh, man. That's funny. Guy cracking me up coming back from the commercial. Lee Rogers came in and said that somebody had on somebody from the Eagle Forum and Chuck Baldwin all in one show. And then Michael Vale said, that's as bad as bringing on Kissinger and Z-Big in one show. Oh, man. That's so funny. I mean, look, here's the thing. We played those clips, right, yesterday. And my thing is that if people are lobbing accusations about you or asking questions, I would say that maybe the best thing you could probably do would be to tone down a little bit your associations with those type of people that would, you're being accused of associating with. I just think that would be personally, my rule of thumb. But I guess maybe not. Oh, man, this stuff just never ends. But nonetheless, Ventura says Colin Powell's a war hero while Cheney ran and hid. Former Minnesota Governor Jesse Ventura laid in Dick Cheney on CNN on Monday night for, among other things, supporting waterboarding and maligning a war hero. Oh, Powell's a war hero, huh, Ventura? Well, he's also a 33rd degree Freemason. I don't trust Jesse Ventura. As far as saddens me is how many of these Kool-Aid drinking patriots have been buying into Jesse Ventura. And next time he runs for office, that they're going to be, getting behind this guy. Unbelievable. I think we do have some audio of this. Let's see if we can play some of this audio of this clown, Jesse the Turd Ventura here. Okay, maybe not. I love how right when you're going to play something, it won't work. That's always convenient, isn't it? Oh, here we go. 1 second.
How's Obama doing? Too early to tell, Larry, really. And, in my opinion, George Bush is the worst president in my lifetime.
I have an opinion.
I will. And he's the worst president in my lifetime. So President Obama inherited something I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. 2 wars, an economy that's a borderline depression. So it's far too early to judge him 100 days in. I think if you have me back about 2 years from now, I can give you a much better of how he's doing.
He poked fun at himself at the White House Correspondents' Dinner Saturday night. Let's watch.
Finally, I believe that my next 100 days will be so successful I will be able to complete them in 72 days. And on the 73rd day, I will rest.
Okay, so the video appears to be hung up. I don't know what the hell's going on with this today. Oh, here we go. Now it's playing again.
Very likable.
Oh, yeah, Matt.
Okay, well, every time I go to it, it just stops. So we won't play any more of that. But nonetheless, here's the thing. Ventura says it's, defending Colin Powell. And this guy's all over the friggin' Patriot Radio, and you're supposed to be, liking this guy. Colin Powell's a 33rd degree Freemason. He signed us into the South American Treaty, which effectively brought us into the North American Union. So, Jesse Ventura, you can kiss my white rear end as far as I'm concerned. It's just amazing, man, how many people just that buy into these guys, this celebrity worship, Just because somebody comes out and says something remotely, and look, this has been an operation that's been going on for the past several years. This is why they're now taking the ideologies of what has been the Patriot movement for years and taking it mainstream, and then peppering it with celebrities and all this stuff, because what they're trying to do now is they know that people are waking up to the bigger picture. I know that people are waking up to the bigger picture of who's really in control. They've moved past just this idea of chasing shadowy enemies of the New World Order and the Illuminati and not really naming names. People are now waking up to the fact that there's a priest class and there's, there is a whole level of control just beyond the Jewish puppets that you see that are put out there in the highest positions of power, because that's what happens. Most people start researching this stuff. They see the Jewish puppets that are in power, and they think that that's as far as the power goes. But now people are waking up to this stuff. I think if anything could be said for what has happened with this network, Oracle Broadcasting, in the almost August will be a year. But I think one of the things that if you could say one thing about this network so far and all the shows here on this network, one thing that we've been able to do with all these shows is we've effectively been able to show people other levels of the New World Order that they're not getting from some of these other shows, and it's been effective, and people are waking up to it now, and people are asking the harder questions, and they're digging deeper, and they want to know more, and so there's movement going on. We don't need a movement, but there's a movement going on where people are. It's not stagnant anymore. I feel like, for a long time it was getting stagnant. Nothing new was coming out. No new information was coming out. People weren't really finding out more than they knew yesterday. But what's starting to happen is there's a shift going on. And I talked about this a few weeks ago, and I had to, there was a caller or something that called in the Lee Rogers show, called in my show, and said that I was bad for saying this. But let me tell you something. I said it once. I said it 1,000 times. I'll say it again. If there's a division that happens where you've got these people that are essentially just Kool-Aid drinking cult worshipers that are following, the ideologies of the mainstream Patriot movement, and they're not waking up to who's really in control, and they're not waking up to the deeper aspects of the New World Order. And then there's another section of the people that listen to this network that are really finding out what's going on and really interested in getting to the next level and going deeper and deeper and deeper. If there becomes a division between those two type of people, I say bring it on. I say let it happen, because that's the whole thing. You got to let the dead bury the dead on these type of things. You just, you got to stick to the people that you can, that want to know more, and the rest of the people that, just want to remain in a state of arrested development. There's really not much you can do about that. And I certainly don't think that it's worthy of your energies to try and constantly proselytize to someone who just doesn't want to wake up. More on the other side, folks. Thursday edition of the Global Reality. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Stay with us. Back here with you on the Global Reality, right here on the Oracle Broadcasting Network. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Thank you so much for being with us. Lots more to talk about here today on the show. We're glad you all could join us today for the broadcast. Wide open phone lines for you as well. And 512-904-8014, and toll-free internationally at 1-866-841-1065. SecretRightMovie.com is the website if you'd like to order a copy of the new film, The Secret Right Volume 1. They're now shipping out, and it's getting exciting because people are starting to get people that are calling in, and people are sending me emails saying they got the DVD and watched it, and the rest of it. So that's very awesome. And nice to know that people are enjoying it. People are watching it with family members and whatnot. And people. It's amazing. There, had several reports and known several people personally as well that have watched the film that don't a damn thing about the Patriot movement. Don't know anything about why controlled opposition is important, or getting out the knowledge of controlled opposition is important and covering that, or any of the implication stuff. But are watching the film and enjoying it, and that's amazing to me because I kind of made the film in a way in which, really, if you don't already have a general idea what's going on, you're not going to get the film. But to have already had, 5 or 10 people tell me, that they watched the film, and they really, with people that don't really have any idea what's going on, and they get it and they understand it, that's very cool. I don't know, I really don't know if you can really ask for anything more than that. But nonetheless, CIA chief in secret Israel talks on Iran. CIA chief Leon Panetta has held secret talks in Israel with top officials who assured him the Jewish state would not launch a surprise attack on Iran. According to a public radio report, Panetta arrived in Israel 2 weeks ago for a round of talks with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Defense Minister Ehud Barak, and other top officials. The talks focus on Iran's nuclear program, which, with the United States and Israel, suspect is aimed at developing an atomic bomb, a claim denied by Tehran. Israeli leaders assured Panetta that Israel does not intend to surprise the U.S. on Iran. Oh, my goodness. President Barack Obama's decision to engage Tehran in direct talks is an effort to end the nuclear standoff and raised concern in Israel, which is called a negotiation to be limited in time and completed by tough sanctions. Israel, nevertheless, refuses to remove the option of taking military action against the Islamic Republic. Netanyahu said the Iran's nuclear ambitions pose an existential threat to the Jewish state. Well, again, the whole bottom line of it is that, again, going back to Saddam Hussein and the library that he was just about done opening in 2002. He was just about done completing a library that was ready to be open, conveniently, right in time for them to shift the focus away from, okay, we got to go into Afghanistan to get Bin Laden because he attacked us on 9/11 because he hates our freedoms. And boom, right there as, towards the tail end of 2002, right when Saddam Hussein was about to complete this new library containing cylinder seals from the Sumerian civilization and the Akkadian Babylonian civilizations, which, according to some researchers, had information in it to prove that the Arabic bloodlines that inhabited the cradle of civilization were the true Semites, and not the Jews, and so he was getting ready to open that. Well, couldn't have that, so what would they do? Well, they switched the focus around from, okay, now we got to go get Saddam Hussein because he has weapons of mass destruction. Lo and behold, they shift that around. The invasion happens in 2003, and boom, the first thing they do is they go blow the doors off the Iraq National Museum, taking all the artifacts pertaining to the Akkadian, Sumerian, Assyrian, and Babylonian civilizations. conveniently enough for that. But so, this is what's continuing to go. This is about genocide. This is about the wiping out of certain bloodlines who, who have the opportunity to change everything that we know about the history of this planet and everything else. And they're doing a good job. People don't understand that Hitler was just an extension of these people's plan that's been going on for years. But the focus is always put on Hitler as if he was just one person who had that ideology for one period of time, and that's it. That's flat not true. His ideologies reflect the ideologies of the priest class as a whole and the overall upper echelons of the power structure of the New World Order, and it's never continued. And then, of course, you look into things like Hitler being into the Golden Dawn and his occultic knowledge, because, again, Hitler had to be versed in the mystery religions. You're not going to be able to put somebody in a position of that to make them understand why the genocide is necessary unless they are versed in the ideologies of the priest class. That way they can reinforce that in their actions. You see, this is what they do. This is why they bring people in. They have to reinforce the ideas of the hierarchy. It's like we've talked about recently with, the left brain, right brain people, and how that's what the elite focus in on, is they focus in on left brain people. That's, from going through school, from the public education camps all the way up to college, up to the job market. If you take in what you're fed into your left brain, regurgitate it back out the way that it's put in there into the left brain to reinforce the ideology of the hierarchy, you will climb the ladder. Of course, once you get into the people like us, a lot of us, the analytical thinkers, who take it into the left brain, focus it, and then process it in the right brain, put it back out in a creative way, well, then that becomes a problem, because, analytical thinkers are the type of people that go, wait a second. You're telling me that we got to do this because of this, this, and this? And then, of course, those type of people start to ask questions, and they become a threat to the overall power structure. And, well, we can't have that. No, it's the great work. You can't have anything that gets in the way of the great work. No. Report says much of 9/11 Commission's findings cite intelligence garnered by torture. Much of the material cited in the 9/11 Commission's finding was derived from terror war detainees during brutal CIA interrogations authorized by the Bush administration. Oh, my God, are you telling me we have more evidence to prove that the 9/11 Commission was BS? No. And I'm sorry, folks. I hate to be freaking cynical on, all these articles, but you know what? I mean, you get to the point where it's just like, common sense dictates most of your answers to this stuff. We don't need you to know. We didn't even need to know that most of the information and most of the testimonies that they derived the entire 9/11 Commission report from came from skewed testimony used from torture techniques. Really? Again. So more, you're telling us that so in the end, the 9/11 Commission report was BS. Wow. Thank you for that shocking revelation. We didn't figure that out 5 or 6 years ago, did we? Nah. Commission Executive Director Philip Zelikow admitted we were not aware, but we guessed that things like that were going on. We were wary. We tried to find different sources to enhance our credibility. Zelikow, oh, God. I mean, this guy's one of the most complicit criminals in the cover-up of the truth about 9/11 that we have. I mean, Philip Zelikow, give me a break. We tried to find different sources to enhance our credibility. Well, you didn't do a very good job there, bucko. Your credibility's been shot to hell, and people's faith in the power structure is dwindled more and more. But, of course, now they got Black Jesus in there, so people have gone back to sleep. More on the other side, folks. Thursday edition of the Global Reality. Stay with us. Back here with you on the Global Reality on this Thursday edition. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Thank you for being with us today, folks. Wide open phone lines for you at 512-904-8014 and toll-free internationally as well at 1-866-841-1065. Those are the numbers to get you up and on the air with us. And, I saw Doug mention this article. I had this up here to talk about, so we're going to talk about it now. A lot of you may know about these acai berries. What acai berries do is they give you an energy field. They give you energy and that's really what they do. They're from the rainforest, the Brazilian jungles, but they're being sold as some sort of weight loss thing through Oprah and others, which is totally ridiculous because these things are meant. These are meant to be they're not meant to be used for this materialistic weight loss crap. And obviously it's not working for Oprah. Look at her big fat ass. It's like she's been eating Vietnamese children for brunch every day. But you know, that's the whole thing. These are meant for the body and soul to exist in harmony. If you study acai berries and what they're meant for, they're not supposed to be used for just, you know, petty weight loss. It's totally ridiculous. But this is from Bloomberg. Superfood promoted on Oprah's site robs Amazon poor of staple. Rising U.S. sales of acai, a purple Amazon berry promoted as a superfood on Oprah Winfrey's website, are depriving Brazilian jungle dwellers of a protein-rich nutrient they've relied on for generations. U.S. consumers are turning a typical poor people's food into something like a delicacy, said Oscar Nogueira, who specializes in fruit at the Embrapa, Brazil's agriculture research company. Spending on acai-based products by Americans seeking to lose weight, gain energy, or slow aging doubled to $104 million last year, according to Spins, a Schaumburg, Illinois-based market research firm. Since U.S. demand took off early this decade, the fruit's wholesale price in Brazil has jumped about 60-fold, Embrapa data showed. In 2008, exports from par, the South American country's main producing state, climbed 53% to account for about a quarter of an output, according to the local government. Production, though, has increased little in the past 5 years. Winfrey, 55, discussed the berry with Mohamed Oz on her TV talk show in February 2008 when the New York cardiologist presented his anti-aging checklist. It includes acai, blueberries, and tomatoes. It has twice the antioxidant content of blueberries, says Oz, 48. Winfrey's site publishes dermatologist Nicholas Peroni's 10 superfoods list, which includes the Brazilian fruit, Meriden, Connecticut-based Pericone 60 sells skincare items and food supplements, including a powder that contains the berry. Oz declined to be interviewed for this article. Pericone didn't reply to the email and telephone request for comment. Pericone's list on Winfrey's site included a link to a statement saying she isn't associated with any acai product. So, yeah, that's nice. That's nice of her to do, isn't it? She pushes this stuff on behalf of these companies that she gets ginormous kickbacks from. They go down and rape and pillage it. Then she's able to say, well, I'm not affiliated or associated with these groups. But why do you have them on for infomercial to sell products to your big to your big following? That's all it is. Oprah doesn't give a rat's ass about your health. You think she cares about your health? Hell no. In fact, has anybody seen Stedman lately? Her house man. Anybody seen Stedman lately? I think we should start asking questions. I think Stedman may have been roasted on an open spit with an apple in his mouth. I really do. I think maybe Stedman was wound up as a hot lunch. I don't know. That's a question somebody asked. We need to get Jim Tucker on the case. No, I mean, literally, this is what she does is she gets these people on to sell products. They make millions and millions off the products. Oprah gets a kickback, and then she's able to just say, well, I'm not associated with that. Me. How many houses do you got, Oprah? How many buffet lines did they give you to sell your soul? That's what I want to know. You know? How many trips to Golden Corral did it take for you to sign your soul over to Satan? I don't know. How many, and yeah, of course, that's all Lee talking about. She's got those schools down there in Africa, which have been, they have like little kids getting molested and stuff down there. It's ridiculous. But of course, Oprah's scot-free from it. I don't know. I think that, if I believed in a quote-unquote antichrist, which I really don't, but if I believed in one, Oprah would be high up on my list. So you're going to eat me? Good luck with that, Oprah. Oprah's in the chat room now. But Oprah Obama. It's like one name, isn't it? Seriously. But, yeah. But in, this is the thing. Do they care that they're going and raping and pillaging jungles? No, because it's about that. It's about that dollar. It's about, and then look, what are they going to do when all the acai berries are gone? When they rape it, what are they going to do? Oh, they'll move on to something else. And where is the FDA on this? Where's Codex Alimentarius when you need them? Remember that story we had yesterday about the Cheerios now being deemed a drug? Well, hey, what about Oprah's stuff? How come we can't deem what Oprah sells a drug? And charge her a lard-ass tax or something? Can we do that, please? How about the carbon footprint on Oprah's trip to the buffet lines? Goodness gracious, Obama's environmental team should be all over this one. The bovine flatulence level coming out of Chicago, should be quite large. I would think. I would think she's an environmental hazard on her own, strictly because of the methane release. I don't know. That's just me. I'm looking at the environmental impact here. That's my concern. I don't know. I think maybe somebody needs to look at. Oprah is her own carbon footprint all its own. Just the trail of slime she leaves when she wanders up to the line at Furs, I think is enough to justify that. Much less. I'm telling you though, I'm still worried about poor Stedman. I'm telling you, I think Stedman was roasted on an open spit with an apple in his mouth. You hadn't seen him in a while. Stedman, come in here, darling. Now, Oprah, what's going on? What do you want? I've got a surprise for you, and just gouges him and puts him on the open fire and roasts him. But nonetheless, you're going to see more of this continue. The fact that people buy into Oprah's stuff, who are they going to replace her with here in a few years? Tyra Banks? That's going to be great. Oh man, I don't know who's worse. We should have a. I think when the country finally falls, and people are done with all this obsessive cult worship of celebrities, I think what we should do is we should have a steel cage wrestling match. We should take all the chicks from The View and Oprah and throw them all in a big steel cage and starve them out for about a week. Waterboard them and starve them out for about a week, and then throw them in a steel cage with a turkey, and they'll just tear each other apart and play it at halftime at the Super Bowl. That'd be sweet. Second hour around the corner, lots more to talk about. This is the Global Reality. Stay with us. Back here with you on the Global Reality on this Thursday edition of the show. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Thank you for being with us today, ladies and gentlemen, for the broadcast. So glad each and every one of you could join us, and lots more to talk about here today on the duration of the show. If you'd like to be a part of the broadcast today, we'd love to hear from you at 512-904-8014 and toll free internationally as well at 1-866-841-1065. You want to weigh in on the virtues of Oprah's stretch marks or anything else, give us a call. Toll free 1-866-841-1065 and 512-904-8014. Those are the numbers to get you up and on the air with us. They're also posted at oraclebroadcasting.com, where the chat room is open right now as well. So we'd like to see you all in there, and lots of chatters talking it up. And so come on in and join us for the interactive part of the broadcast today. SecretRightMovie.com is my website if you'd like to get a copy of the newest film, The Secret Right Volume 1, which are now shipping out. Those of you that haven't received DVDs yet that ordered all the way up to May 1st will be getting those in the next few days. So be checking your mailboxes for that. So there you go if you'd like to get a copy and support us. That's how you can do it. And also check us out on MySpace at myspace.com/Global Reality Show. That is where you can do that as well. You can also email me at globalrealityshow@gmail.com. That's globalrealityshow@gmail.com, and that's where you can email me right there. We've in several past shows, we've talked about these these things called the ephod devices, which are these that are used by the Jewish Levite cult, and they're used in various. They're a spirit world communication device. They're used by priests and whatnot, and it's essentially a golden chest plate. It's made of gold as a conducting device, and it's and I'll put a picture of one in the chat room for you. And it has stones, these polished stones, 12 polished stones, which look very similar to a phone keypad, which is interesting when you look at just a phone keypad, or you look at an iPhone keypad, iPhone, ephod, iPhone. But it's got these 12 stones that allegedly, not allegedly, but each one of the stones represents one of the 12 tribes of Israel, and also, but allegedly represents 12 disembodied extraterrestrial races. But what's interesting is that if you look at the queen's crown, she has 12 jewels. The 12. Her crown is an ephod itself, and so is the Pope's fish hat. It's an ephod as well. It has these 12 stones. It's a communication device. This is how they communicate in the spirit world. Well, a very interesting article this week that came out. Daily Mail hadn't had to it all week, but I want to get into it now. The king of Stonehenge were artifacts at ancient chief's burial site, Britain's first crown jewels. And it's interesting, they found this 4,000-year-old gold body ornament found at the burial site in Wiltshire at Stonehenge. And it's interesting that they're saying the name of that vest is the ephod, E-P-H-O-D. Let's go to search engine and type that, yes. And what's interesting is that they found this body ornament at Stonehenge, which they believe are the first crown jewels, which is from this character who was the king of Stonehenge and whatnot. Well, what's interesting about this thing that they found there is it's 4,000 years old. Take a look at that. I'll put a picture of that in the chat room. That's what they found at Stonehenge. Now, look in the center of it. You have sort of an ephod-looking square in the middle of it with individual squares, with squares out to the middle with thin pyramids emanating out. It's a very interesting thing, and of course, there's a picture, a drawing, an artist's impression of this person who was buried at Stonehenge 4,000 years ago, and you'll notice he's wearing that device-looking thing on his chest. And so I'll put this link in the chat room for you right now if you'd like to read along with me. He was a giant of a man, a chieftain who ruled with a royal scepter and a warrior's axe. When they laid him to rest, they dressed him in his finest regalia and placed his weapons at his side. Then they turned his face towards the setting sun and sealed him in a burial mound that would keep him safe for the next 4,000 years. In his grave were some of the most exquisitely fashioned artifacts of the Bronze Age, intricately crafted to honor the statues of a figure who bore them in life and death. But this may have been the last resting place of the king of Stonehenge and the treasures that are effectively Britain's first crown jewels. Now the entire hoard, recovered from the richest and most important Bronze Age grave on Salisbury Plain, is set to go on permanent display. But the 21st century Britain has thrown up a problem that never troubled ancient man. The artifacts were so rare, they've been kept in a bank vault for the past 3 decades because they are too precious to put on show without extensive security. So today the Wiltshire Heritage Museum at Devizes is announcing a £500 million appeal to fund a secure gallery. It will allow the treasures to be displayed alongside many of the other wonders of Stonehenge, giving a fascinating glimpse at what life was like some 1,800 years BC. The remains of tall, stout man were uncovered 2 centuries. I like how they say he was giant. He was rather large. Is this insinuating that he was a giant? I don't know. It's very interesting, though. And the remains of tall stout man were uncovered 2 centuries ago by archaeologists trying to unravel the ancient stone circle's enduring secrets. In 1808, their attention turned to Bush Barrow, a huge burial mound that boasts the most commanding view of Stonehenge from nearby Normanton Down. Clearly, whoever lay here was important. Only when the chamber was excavated, however, did it become apparent just how important. Measurements taken from the skeleton showed that the man would have towered above contemporaries at over 6 feet tall. Most of the articles buried with him in the 130 diameter, 10-foot-high barrow were so fabulously rare that only someone of royal, military, or religious power might possess them. Some believe tall, stout man was all three: a monarch, a general, and a spiritual leader. Well, all leaders back then were. This is what I've talked about many times. You go back and you study any of these ancient rulers, they were all of these things. That's what's been missing. I've talked about that before, about getting back to being Renaissance men. You've got these people people in the modern day. Yeah, they're good with weapons, and yeah, they're effective killers, but they're dumber than a box of rocks. There's no balance. There's no Renaissance men anymore. There's no people that are, these guys. When you read about these old rulers, like ancient Roman rulers and all this stuff, when you read about these guys from the past, they had it all. They were scholars. They were astute thinkers. They had massive libraries. They were interested in knowledge and interested in finding out more. And they would be astute thinkers and leaders, but they would also be, impressive warriors on the battlefield. And that's so missing now, That's missing. We've got to get back to that. We have to become astute warriors and astute scholars as well. That's sorely what's missing. I think that to me is one of the most important things that we can do. Is to become people that are knowledgeable and effective fighters and warriors and scholars and the Renaissance man. Returning to that. And I think at the point in which we reached the technological progression in society, when that was bred out and taken away from us, was really once you started to see society in decline and man as a species in decline as well. Because if we had believe me, if we existed in a world of astute warriors and astute scholars, where everyone was, the best balance between the two, there would be no need for wars. There would be no need for greed. There would be no need for any of this stuff. Because each and every person would have no other reason to go and take on another country, because you would have somebody that's your equal. Why would you need to go fight? Why would you need to go declare war? Why would you worry about food, water, resources? Why would you need to worry about all that? Because every man out there would be your equal. There would be no reason for jealousy. There would be no reason for greed. None of that. But see, once we started breeding into society various levels of classes, from elite to middle elite to lower to middle to lower, that's when war and greed and poverty and everything else come into play, because then it breeds classism and elitism. And I personally think, from just all my years of studying society and studying cultures and studying all this stuff, I really think that classism has been the biggest weapon ever used against humanity. I think that has been the biggest thing that's ever been unleashed on us that has been detrimental, has been classism. Because, again, for anyone to believe that any other human would be either below them, or that you would be, so any other human would be below you, or you would be above another human, is what causes all of these things to happen throughout the world that has gotten us in these situations that we're in. Man was intended to be on a level playing field with each other. It was not meant for there to be this hierarchy of elites and then lower classes and slave classes. We were supposed to be equal here. But, anymore, with the way that the society is, it's just, that's going by the way a long-forgotten dream. But, I notice this every time I go out in public and whatnot. I notice that every single day it seems like that people are getting dumber and dumber by the day. Does anybody else but me notice that? It just seems that more and more every day. I mean, we should, if you believe in what they tell us we're supposed to believe about evolution, of course, we know evolution was a Darwinian eugenics mindset that came out of the Tavistock Institute on Human Relations. But, especially when there's no doubt we know that animals and whatnot have adapted to their specific regions throughout the world. There are certain animals you can look at that have adopted certain appendages to their body to adapt to eating certain foods in that area. So we know that evolution on the animalistic scale is real. But when you throw humans in that thing, that's where the confusion starts. And that's where the disinformation starts to come. I mean, humans really, really evolved, if you look at it, on a massively fast scale. Faster than anything else. We're the only thing that doesn't really fit in on this planet and really doesn't fit into that whole scale. So, what I think is interesting is that more and more I find that we're not becoming more, evolving into smarter and more spiritually and physically astute creatures. We're becoming dumber and dumber every day. I mean, I see idiots that we go out and drive around for 30 minutes and tell me if you don't see that. I mean, people are just getting stupider by the minute. And, that movie, Idiocracy, was right on. I mean, we're all really heading to that world. You mean like from the toilet? I mean, but anyway, let's continue about this Stonehenge man here. The highlight of the collection is a bronze dagger that had been richly and most singularly ornamented with more than 140,000 minute gold rivets arranged to form a zigzag pattern in the hilts. Each rivet, as fine as a human hair and no more than a millimeter long, has been meticulously placed in individually drilled holes, then glued in place to form a brilliant luster. Bronze daggers were very rare in those days, with probably only 50 in the country. This one was unique and certainly fit for a king. Other treasures include what appears to be a scepter of office, sleeved with jagged tooth interlocking bone rings, an oval mace head, laboriously shaped, drilled and polished from a fossil sponge, 2 more bronze daggers, and an axe head, a gold buckle, a lozenge-shaped insignia, or a piece of gold jewelry, and a gold breastplate. A gold breastplate enhanced by symmetrically carved patterns. See, the gold breastplate, of course, I think this is an early ephod. I think there was no other way for us to think this isn't anything but that, a communication device. See, back then, the priests and the warriors and the leaders were all the same people. There wasn't a compartmentalization where, you had the any sort of a separation in that. The priests and the warriors and all this were in the leaders and we're all the one and the same. Archaeologists have long believed, where do I live off? It said, archaeologists have long believed these to have been among the most valuable possessions of the age, taking teams of craftsmen and women up to 5 years to make. They used materials sourced from all over the country, possibly Europe as well. And so we'll finish. We got just a little bit more. We'll finish this article up on the other side. Get some other news as well. Thursday edition of the Global Reality. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Stay with us. Back here with you on the Global Reality on this Thursday edition. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Thank you so much for being with us. Today, I want to finish up this article and move on to some other stuff here. Very interesting. This find out there at Stonehenge. I mean, we look. I mean, I could get into hours of stuff on the Druids and ancient pagan rites and all this stuff, and the ancient priest class. But you can go find all this stuff on your own. But I think it definitely plays into that. But it says it is one of the most prominent burial mounds around Stonehenge, and it's thought to have been directly linked with a stone circle by a professional walkway lined with stone pillars, the so-called heel stone. Museum director David Dawson said it is a leap of faith, but it is not impossible that Bush Burial was the burial place of the person who had Stonehenge built. It appears to be a family vault in which tall, stout man was placed about 400 years later. It is therefore almost certain that he was part of that elite dynasty. There was no doubt he was an important figure. He clearly had the power to command the considerable collaboration it would take to fashion the kind of treasures which, in a culture which knew no diamonds or precious stones, were essentially Britain's first crown jewels. 4,000 years later, we want to allow the public to see them as a part of the experience of viewing Stonehenge and discovering Britain's past. So, interesting there with that, and just the similarities between that gold piece and the ephod, I think, is very interesting. But of course, we know that the Bilderberg meeting is going on right now in Greece. You may have heard about that. I find that interesting that now the mainstream media is jumping all over covering the Bilderberg Group. Anybody else but me think that's interesting? Because I can remember 10 years ago, I remember in the late 90s, 98, 99, I remember telling people about the Bilderberg Group. And, I mean, it was certifiable. I mean, it's unbelievable how far we've come. I mean, I literally can remember telling people about the Bilderberg Group in 1998, 1999, and I mean, you might as well have said that Cookie Monster was going to drop turds from a 747 next week. I mean, whatever. You might as well have said that was going to happen. People were just completely, just completely, you couldn't convince them of it. It was the biggest conspiracy theory that you can imagine, and now it's getting covered in mainstream media. I don't know. I think the fact of the matter is that this is a direct result of the fact that people are waking up to the fact that there are levels above the Bilderberg Group, even though there are people out there that will tell you that the Bilderberg Group is the tip top of the pyramid, when really they're upper management. Okay? They're upper management for industry is what they are. They're not the tip top of the pyramid that controls everything in the world. That's just ridiculous. And the fact that people will still try to convince you of that, and the fact that there are still people out there that are convinced of that, is tribute to the fact that people don't do their own damn research. But this was one from the Guardian UK. Our man at Bilderberg, close but still no cabal. With the annual secret meeting of the global elite hours away, the shadowy conspiracy, corporatocracy remains tantalizingly elusive, writes Charlie Skelton. And it says that it's B-1 the day before Bilderberg, and it's definitely happening. I see the guns. And I thought it might be a good idea to go to the Astor Palace Resort for lunch, see what kind of cheese omelet the president of the Federal Reserve is going to be enjoying. I didn't get far. At the gates, there were machine guns and men in loose jackets and guards checking under cars for bombs, and those mirrors on sticks that morbidly obese people use to check whether they've taken their knickers off. I should have come for breakfast. Maybe I would have gotten in. A security guard opened the cab door, leaned in, and asked me if I was staying at the hotel. I gave it my best shot. I said, not much of a shot, but my best one. I'm here for lunch. We're closed now, only guests. Into the driver, a bark of instructions to turn around. We turned around. I explained to the driver what was happening at the hotel, trying to avoid words like globalization, corporatocracy, and the dissolution of sovereignties leading to a supranational control structure. I think he got the gist. They come to here, the leaders of the world. He honked amiably at a girl in a bikini. To have a conference or to have a holiday? Now is time for a holiday. Look at the beach. I looked to the beach. Everyone was splishing about in the shallows, batting tennis balls at each other, and reading whatever the Greek equivalent of John Grisham is. The sky is blue, the sea is calm, even the dogs that sleep on the sand are well fed from the restaurant bins. What else could possibly be wrong in the world? Just up the hill, a small group of people were meeting for the weekend and might play a bit of ping pong. Where's the harm in that? Might thrash out a few broad brushstrokes policies, microchipping, World Bank. These things need to be discussed, and this is as nice a place as any to discuss them. Blah, blah, blah. It's a little quaint little article here. But anyway, it says, independently of me, Jim Tucker failed to get in for a scoop. He stubs out a weary cigarette. I don't sense it's his first. I ask him about the order of business, and he says, this year they'll be talking about that ridiculous swine flu. And then the 5 raked out syllables, he gives the word swine. He paints his distaste of the subject. They want to use it to turn the World Health Organization into the Global Department of Health. I have to ask, isn't it already? Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I mean, give me a break, Tucker. I mean, is that all you got left? And, of course, Tucker wrote for the Spotlight, which was the Willis-Carto publication of the Liberty Lobby. Willis-Carto was counsel for national policy. They're now the American Free Press, which has been ensconced with, Council for National Policy groups for years. This is why, look at Willis-Carto brought over Roger Pearson, the head of the Pioneer Fund, Eugenics 101. But listen to this. I mean, this is all Is this all that Tucker has left? Does Jim Tucker really honestly believe that he can get away with telling people that they want to turn the World Health Organization into the Global Department of Health? And this guy's exactly right. Yeah, it's the same damn thing. The Global Department of Health, the World Health Organization. It's the same thing. It's already a global governing body for health issues around the world. You know, what are they going to do? Change the name? It's still going to be the same thing. It's just ridiculous. I mean, you know, they want to turn the World Health Organization into the Global Department of Health. We're already under global control, folks. Maybe you didn't get the memo. You know, maybe you didn't get that memo. It says only for members of the United Nations. Also, they'll be talking about ratifying the International Criminal Court. Obama is waiting until he gets the sympathetic Senate after 2010 elections. Then he'll pass it one evening late in the week, too late for the Sunday papers, too late for the talk shows. It'll happen and no one will notice. First part of 2011. Yes, it's going on right now. That's what I'm talking about. It's going on right now in Greece. Anyway, we'll talk more about this on the other side. Thursday edition of the Global Reality. Stay with us. Here with you on the Global Reality on this Thursday edition. I'm your host, Josh. Reed, thank you so much. And yeah, you know, the Bilderberg Group meeting is going on right now. Blah, blah, blah. You know, I think somebody should go to a Bilderberg Group meeting or go to out there to cover Bilderberg. I think somebody should go stick a camera in Jim Tucker's face and ask him why he's never talked about Joseph Redinger. And that's a good question that needs to be asked. So how come none of these clowns that make films about the Bilderberg Group have ever talked about Joseph Redinger? And they always say that it was Prince Bernhard who started, which, of course, we know it was Joseph Redinger. And Joseph Redinger was, of course, a Knights of Malta. Joseph Redinger was a Polish political advisor and founder of the European movement. Joseph Redinger was born in Krakow, Poland, the youngest of 4 children. His father was the personal legal counsel and advisor to the Count. When Joseph Redinger's father died, Count Zamoski took young Joseph under his wing. Redinger had planned on becoming a priest and was enrolled in a seminary, but the prospect of celibacy made him change his mind. The original Bilderberg conference was held at the Hotel de Bilderberg from May 29 to May 30th, 1954. The meeting was initiated by Joseph Redinger, founder of the European movement. And the European movement coordinates the efforts of associations and private industries desired to work towards the construction of United Europe, which eventually became the European Union, which was one of the first steps in creating the New World Order. The single most important personality connected with the birth and creation of the Bilderberg Group is Joseph Redinger. Redinger had a colorful lifelong career that raised him to the top of the world of the power elite. Redinger, as a Catholic, was viewed by many as an agent of the Vatican, acting in liaison between the Pope and the Father General Jesuit of the Order. Redinger was brought to America by none other than Avril Harriman, Brown Brothers Harriman, you know, who was funneling money from America to the Nazis with Prescott Bush. And he was also a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. He was the U.S. ambassador to England, where he visited prominent citizens such as David and Nelson Rockefeller, John Foster Dulles, and then CIA Director Walter Beldell Smith, all Knights of Malta members. Redinger had also formed an American Committee on a United Europe, along with future CIA Director and CFR member and Freemason and Knight of Malta, Alan Dulles, the CFR Director George Franklin, CIA official Thomas Braden, and William Wild Bill Donovan, former chief of the Office of Strategic Studies, the OSS, forerunner of the CIA. All these guys were all Knights of Malta. And as the Cold War intensified, Knight of Malta Redinger, acting on behalf of the Vatican Prior Sciron, formed ties with the European Council of Princes. They also shared another very interesting commonality. They were all faithful Catholics. And not just that they and Penny, Habsburg, and Andorra were members of the Sovereign Military Order of Malta, but Habsburg and the less prominent Jean Violet were also accused of involvement with Opus Dei. On the membership list of Les Cercle, you find plenty of names of having been connected with the Knights of Malta, Opus Dei, or the Priory of Sion. This is all the more interesting because Joseph Redinger, who recruited Bernhard and others to set up Bilderberg, was another Vatican agent. A Jesuit and likely Knights of Malta. At the end of World War II, the Knights of Malta have been involved in smuggling Nazis out of Germany and helped the OSS, later the CIA, organized and helped them create. So, again, somebody needs to go stick a camera in Tucker's face and ask him why he's never talked about Redinger. Well, of course, there's a good question why, because all of his Knights of Malta buddies that are behind the American Free Press, the Spotlight, and the Liberty Lobby have all been a part of this. That's the reason why. They're another gatekeeping organization, folks. Liberty Lobby, of course, the Spotlight, and then now the American Free Press. These are all disinformation arms that have been put out there to identify the Bilderberg Group as the tip top of the New World Order pyramid, so that you'll never find out about the hidden hand behind it. This is why these Patriot radio types have never discussed Redinger as being the top of the guy that formed the Bilderberg. This is why. So let's talk about. This is an interesting article here. An analysis of the components comprising the world's power structure. And it says that the Illuminati and the black nobility, let's talk about this. Illuminati means the enlightened ones are bearer of light, which can also be names likened to things like Lucifer. Those top players in their international playground are called the Illuminati, or Moriah. They belong to 13 of the wealthiest families in the world and are the men who really rule the world from behind the scenes. They are the black nobility, the decision makers who make up the rules for presidents and governments to follow by which they govern. These groups of people are always behind the curtain and veiled, withdrawn from the public eyes because their actions can't bear too much scrutiny. Their bloodlines go back thousands of years. These families are careful to keep their elitist bloodlines propagated from generation to generation. No contamination is ever entertained. Their power lines in the occult and in the economy, money creates power. They own all the international banks, the oil businesses, the most powerful businesses in industry and trade. They infiltrate politics, and they own most governments, or at the very least, control them. But this is, as we're talked about, I mean, the fact that this guy Redinger is never mentioned. Again, part and parcel of the fact that, look, all of the truth people out there, the whole Truth Movement, Patriot Movement, their whole job, again, from the very beginning has been designed to keep people from ever finding out where the true power is. That's what their whole job has been. And it's amazing that still people can't see it, and people still don't, understand that this has been their job for this amount of time. I mean, look, the fact of Redinger alone, and they're covering that up, is very interesting. How else would an unknown entity from a tiny little poor town, I skipped a line here. It says that for years, rumors have run rampant about the circumstances surrounding Bill Clinton's birth. Indeed, it is purported that he is the illegitimate grandson of a great power monger, making the Blythe lineage completely erroneous. Many claim that it is only common sense to comprehend the pieces of the puzzle. At the time of his birth, Arkansas was considered to be a wild and woolly state, flaunting gambling and prostitution, as frivolity very easily attained. In those days, many New Yorkers traveled south to avail themselves of weekend fun and games. The elitists were no exception. How else could an unknown entity from a tiny town in a poor, unsophisticated state achieve such high claim and notoriety? Most surely needed some leverage to become the recipient of the Rhodes Scholarship, the gift funded by a very powerful Illuminati member, Cecil Rhodes of South Africa. This feat not only easily garnered by a commoner, from that moment on it was onward and upward. The speculation still rears its ugly head. But so we have these different families and these different bloodlines. You've got the Astor bloodline, the Bundy, the Collins, DuPont, Freeman, Kennedy, Onassis, Lee, L.I. Lee. Those are your Asian bloodline, Illuminati bloodlines. Reynolds, Rockefeller, Rothschilds, Aden, Merovingian. In addition, the following families are considered to be the key money system families of international banking: Goldman, Kuhn, Lazarus Brothers, Lehman, Loeb, J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller, Sachs, Warburg, Jacob Schiff, J. Henry Schroeder, Israel Moses, Steve, and Rothschilds of France and England. The secret societies have been present in the history of man for a long time. It all started thousands of years ago with the Brotherhood of the Snake. We talked about that earlier in the week. A secret society set up by Ea or Enki. This story is carefully told in the Sumerian scriptures. which go back at least 6,000 years. And so we will talk more about that in just a minute. We're going to get into all of these things pertaining to these bloodlines. I think it's important to talk about this stuff right here in the middle of the Bilderberg Group meeting. We're on the other side, folks. Thursday edition of the Global Reality. Stay with us. Back here with you on the Global Reality on this Thursday edition. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Thank you for being with us. And we were talking about, I started talking about Redinger and because, having the Bilderberg Group meeting, so that was important to try to put out some information on some truthful information about the Bilderberg Group and how the Bilderberg Group essentially was the reason that the Bilderberg Group was started. You can go back and study Redinger and Bernhardt and the rest of these clowns, and you study their ideologies. It was a way for them to take the ideologies that the Vatican had used, Hitler and the Nazis and the Knights of Malta initiates that they'd had within the Nazi Party, the plans that they had that they were using, and they did on a compartmentalized small scale as their experiment there in Germany. Just really what it was. It was an experiment for what they wanted to do with the world, much in the same way we've seen experiments happen with, what happens when you just let a city collapse on itself, like they did during Katrina. And then, of course, now what we're going to see, which I believe what they're going to do with Mexico. I believe they're going to let the entire country of Mexico collapse on itself to see what happens when you just let a whole country collapse, so they can see what they're going to do for the whole of the world. But what they did was they needed a way to compartmentalize power and to take the ideologies that they'd done in the small form through their SMOM puppets in Nazi Germany, to do it throughout the whole of the world. So that was the reason for the formation of the Bilderberg Group in the very beginning, was to take these ideologies and do it in secret so that no one would know where they were getting marching orders from. And indeed, the marching orders from the Bilderberg Group that's where most marching orders come from the Vatican. And then they use the Zionists and the rest of as extensions of that plan as well. It's not the other way around. I know you've been listening to a lot of these clowns out there that tell you that the Zionists run the Vatican, which is completely ridiculous. The Vatican runs the Zionists, where they run the Jews, all that stuff. So this takes us back. We talked about the 13 families. Now this takes us into the secret societies. We talked about Ea earlier in the week, and the story is very, very carefully told in the Sumerian scriptures, which go back at least 6,000 years. In these scripts, it says that man was created by draconian aliens who came to this planet to exploit its resources, especially gold, but because the work was heavy, the alien race wanted someone else to do the hard work. Thus, Ea, who was a brilliant scientist, created Homo sapiens, a hybrid between primitive life form and an alien race. The first sapiens were meant only for slave labor and couldn't breed. Later on, this was changed. However, Ea didn't like that his created race was treated and wanted to be enlighten them by telling them who they were and from where they originated. He also wanted to teach that each individual was a spirit inhabiting the body. After body death, the spirit lives on and reincarnates on Earth. As the time moved forward, the Brotherhood of the Snake was infiltrated by the elites, and the knowledge was distorted to trap man in physical bodies instead of enlighten him. The Egyptian era was, in fact, a real space opera with aliens walking among us, even taking the throne as pharaohs. By that time, the Brotherhood was well infiltrated, its purpose to manipulate the masses, making them believe in false gods and masters. Throughout history, secret societies have existed, their powerful force operating in the background. The original Brotherhood soon split up into cults, with certain top dogs disagreed with each other. Consequently, different powers of control developed. Even infighting still existed, which is still the case today, and this is in total oblivion to an ignorant population. They invented the religion, sects, cults, so man's attention would be focused elsewhere, in ignorance as to what the Brotherhood was doing. And they also served as a way to control people by not telling them the truth, God and Jesus, telling them the truth about God and Jesus, and people would thereby miss the point and never be set free in their intellectuality. Religion has always been connected with guilt and punishment, which is not the way it intended to be. They put themselves in charge of the churches to entrap people and to continually perpetuate the differences in belief systems, thus stirring up the pot of conflict continually. Most wars throughout history have been religious wars. Out of the original Brotherhood, spawned Freemasonry, the Rosicrucians, the Knights Templar, the Ordo Templi Orientis, the Knights of Malta, and more. The upper echelon of the hierarchy knew the truth about the origin of man, that we were all spiritual beings and thus immortal. They knew God was the real and only true source, but they distorted the power to seeing this and used this knowledge for their own evil purposes. This wisdom was a very well-kept secret, and since then they have done everything in their power to hide the truth from people. One can readily surmise they have been quite successful in their deception. Adam Weishaupt, who was a Jew that converted to Catholicism, became a Jesuit priest in his formation of the Illuminati. He was also infiltrated the Masonic lodges. And the Freemasons initiated a new branch of Freemasonry called Freemasonry of the Scottish Rites. And this was when, sponsored by the Rothschilds on behalf of the Vatican, he infiltrated that and got the secrets, gave them back to the Vatican, and then tried to set up his group, which was basically to do the same thing. But one of the things that Weishaupt was also behind was the protocols of the Elders of Zion, a devious plan with evil purposes of blaming the Jews if the idea of a one world government and a new world order leaked out. It was in the 1770s that it indeed did leak out. Its intent and purpose was accidentally revealed when an Illuminati courier was struck by lightning kneeling over a field. And those documents are in a museum to this day in France, and they actually say Illuminati on them. That's kind of what they're playing off of in the new Angels and Demons film. The protocols were found, and the shocking detailed takeover plans were carefully outlined in this parcel. Consequently, Weishaupt and his Illuminati brothers had to flee and work underground. Their organization banned. It was then declined that the name Illuminati would never officially again be used. This is not to say that front groups would not be useful to fulfill the purpose of world domination, with the rest of the population made into slaves. One of the front groups was the Freemasons. This particular group enjoyed a better reputation. It was believed that Weishaupt was killed by his Freemason brothers because he was unable to keep his mouth shut and still continued to use the name Illuminati. Yet the ultimate goal survived. Weishaupt and the Rothschilds were now recognized heads of the Illuminati, and one of the greatest helps towards meeting that end goal came with the embodiment of Freemason Cecil Rhodes. It was in the 19th century that he tried to build a one-world government with the British Empire on top. This was, of course, sponsored by the Rothschilds. It was also Rhodes who created the Round Table, a secret society itself named after Authors' Round Table, where the Brotherhood elite are still gathering. World War I and World War II were both attempts to effect a takeover. After World War II, people were so tired of all this killing that they welcomed the newly formed United Nations. The UN's official policy was to safeguard the peace so nothing like World War II would ever happen again. However, the UN was another important front organization for the Illuminati. Its purpose was a consolidation of all world countries into a singular unit. This led to the EU project, which anyone with open eyes would discern was the scheme towards moving toward the biggest fascist state ever known to mankind, the European Union. By galloping inflation, the international bankers have succeeded in making us believe that the only solution is one currency. When the project is safeguarded, the Central European Bank has all the power over Europe's economy, can lead us whatever direction they want, and that's what we're moving towards now. This is sort of a concise wrap-up of this. And when we get back from the break here in just a minute, we'll get into the other levels of this and how it relates to the secret society with the Lucius Trust, which was the Lucifer Trust, and a whole lot more. And then we'll move into the more information on the Bilderberg Group, Joseph Redinger, and more. Important to talk about right now with these meetings going on, I believe. More on the other side. This is The Global Reality. Stay with us. Back here with you, ladies and gentlemen, third hour of this Thursday edition of The Global Reality. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Thank you so much for being with us. Today for the show, we've got a lot more to talk about, lots of interesting stuff to get into today. And, I wanted to talk about some of the, just go back over. Sometimes go over review. I know some of this stuff, a lot of you already know, but sometimes I feel the need, I have to get in this habit of going back and talking about things I've already talked about in the past on past shows. Because we have new listeners all the time, and some people don't know how all this stuff interconnects and whatnot. So I want to get back into some more of this stuff. And I think it is important to talk about really where the original priest class originated from, where the secret societies originated from, how, really the origins of things like the Bilderberg Group and how they came from the Vatican and the Sovereign Military Order of Malta and the rest of it. Because I think that this is, to me, this is the next level that I've found that I think is the most important level of research and understanding, is understanding that we've been lied to. And not just been lied to up to this point from the elite and from the people in charge, but we've been lied to by the people within the in the realm and scope of what have been the researchers and the Patriot movement up to this point. So that's really one of the things we got to break through, in my opinion. Hey, we're also, if you'd like to support what we do here, there's two ways you can do that. You can go to secretrightmovie.com if you'd like to get a copy of our new DVD, The Secret Right Volume 1, exposing the Council for National Policy, the Knights of Malta, the Jesuits. We have news clips and articles, news video clear going back 20, 30 years. Stuff from the archives that hasn't been seen outside of the news broadcasts 20, 30 years ago. We get into lots of Iran-Contra, the Reverend Sun Myung Moon, the Bohemian Grove, eugenics. We get into all that stuff there, and we talk about who some of these members are. So that's how you can do that. We also have a chip and banner at myspace.com/Global Reality Show. We're calling it the No Snake Oil Fund to keep us from having to bring on some of these snake oil sponsors here onto the show so that we can continue. Because up to this point, the DVDs that we've sold, we sold enough DVDs to pay for the price of the how much it costs to have the DVDs pressed. But we so far have not made anything back. So we've sold enough to pay for the DVDs. That's about it. So we're enough to get that done, but we're down to zero in our account. So there you go. If you'd like to support us, that's how you can do it. But let's get back into this now, and let's talk about some of these various other aspects of the New World Order. And the overall plan, as it were, going back to what we talked about just a bit ago. Let me see where I left off here. Give me just a second. Oh, yes. Here we go. In 1922, Lucifer's Trust was created in London, but later changed its name to Lucius Trust. As the first name was too obvious, the trust is a non-governmental and officially recognized by the United Nations. It's also an extension of the Theosophical Society. Lucius Trust is sponsored by, among others, the alleged Satanist Robert McNamara, former USA Minister of Defense, president of the World Bank, and member of the Rockefeller Foundation, and Thomas Watson, IBM former ambassador in Moscow. Some of the organizations the Lucius Trust sponsors are the following front organizations: the UN, Greenpeace International, Greenpeace USA, Amnesty International, and UNICEF. Lucius Trust has its only religious chapel, the Temple of Understanding, in the UN headquarters in New York. It is interesting to note that the Lucius Trust openly declares that a secretive group of eliminated New Age notables are now running the planet from behind the scenes. The reason good-intentioned people remain members of such destructive organizations is probably because of non-dramatic structure and chain of commands. The lower grade brother is not initiated to know what's on the grade above, and curiosity drives him into the mystery. Also, the discipline and secrecy. No, it's not a frickin' rerun. God damn it. The reason good-intentioned people remain members of such destructive organizations is probably because of its non-democratic structure of chain of commands. The lower grade brother is not entitled to know what's on the grade above, and curiosity drives him into the mystery. Also, the discipline and secrecy is very strict, and punishment can be hard. If one fails to comply in this manner, the very few evil men at the top can control the many innocent and ignorant people below. It's probably the simple and, of course, a basic form of mind control. One isn't necessarily sure that democracy is the ultimate structure of a society, but the hierarchy of a dictatorship must be worse. True democracy, though, has always showed to fail, as it requires a political involvement from the citizens who are the real power. Our groups of people have been shown to be easily manipulated and controlled through history, and have been made to believe that they live in a democracy. The real power has been given invisibly to the politicians who are actually elected by the people to substantiate the taxpayers' needs and desires. This seems to have been all but forgotten. And look, if you got something to share with me, please call into the show and share it on air. I'm getting PMs. I don't have time to deal with PMs while I'm doing a radio show. I'm sorry. I just flat don't have time to deal with that. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. You know, it's constantly, whenever I'm trying to do the show, there's people that are trying to distract me away from doing it, and it's become a detriment to my show, and I'm trying to deal with it. But every time and then every time I try to deal with not dealing with the show, I look down the chat, and there's every single time when I try to not look at it, I look down, and there's some disinfo going around. This is a rebroadcast, blah, blah, blah. You know, there's a good way to tell if it's a rebroadcast or not. If you go to the front page of oraclebroadcasting.com, and there's right at the front of Oracle Broadcasting, at the front of the page, there's a player up there up top. And at the very front of the website, on Oracle Broadcasting, it says, now playing. You see that? Can you have two eyes? There's a little radio thing at the top of the page. It says, now playing the Global Reality with Josh Reeves. If it's a rebroadcast, it will say in the middle of that, rebroadcast. Okay? That's an easy way to find that out. Okay, children? Here you go. So let's continue here. The UN is nothing more than the world police of the Illuminati, found to give that organization the ultimate authority, a carte blanche account to issue military control over a county or a region, which is counteracting their preconceived plans. Please don't be naive in thinking it's a mere coincidence that the Temple of Understanding is positioned right in the UN headquarters in New York City, USA. Socialism is nothing more but the political body of which the Black Order used to enslave the people of Earth. The red banner is the symbol of their biggest sponsor and their economical protected family banner, who since the 1700s has worked laboriously to bring about socialism. The banker Mayer Michel Rothschild was the first member of the family who not only advocated this plan, but also financed it. Today, the Rothschilds own the EU Central Bank, but what people do not know is that the European banks were founded by the Rothschilds and also owned by them. The central bank is the basic thesis of the advent of socialism. Let's see. For example, the Rothschilds have invested plenty of money into the environmental movement to counter the nuclear power industry. Hypocritically, they want to build their own free energy through nuclear power to meet their own goals and ends. And they've invested money into the environmental movement to counter the nuclear power industry. And of course, we know that's what's going on now. They want to have this all for themselves. But we talked about, of course, the Bilderberg Group meetings going on now. One of the most powerful front groups of the Illuminati, which also works as a secret society in itself, the Bilderbergers, was created in the early 1950s by Joseph Redinger and Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands, former SS officer, both Knights of Malta, and one of the founders of the European movement. These two persons initiated scheduled meetings on a regular basis for European foreign ministers. The core of the group, called the Steering Committee, had an original count of 39. And to reiterate, they were originally led by Bernhardt and Redinger. Since 1954, these meetings have taken place annually at secret locations in a different geographical locale every year. The same group is also referred to as the Invisible World Government because of the nature of these meetings. And are we coming on a break yet? No, we're not. But this leads us into another level of the hierarchy of control, and that is the Committee of 300. And so that's really the next level. And again, all these are extensions of, you're kind of starting out at the bottom, kind of going up higher and higher and higher and higher and higher, and going up the chain of command, and really figuring out how the priest class and the Vatican have created all these separate and interlocking groups. The conscious and intelligent manipulation of organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in a quote-unquote democratic society. Those who manipulate the unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power in our country. And that was from Edward Bernays, and in his book Propaganda. And here's another quote from that book, Edward Bernays, from Propaganda. We are governed, our minds molded, our taste forms, our ideas suggested largely by men we have never heard of. Whatever attitude one chooses to take toward this condition, it remains a fact that in almost every act of our daily lives, whether in the sphere of politics or business or social conduct or ethical thinking, we are dominated by a relatively small number of persons, a trifling fraction of our 120 million who understand the mental processes and social patterns of the masses. It is they who pull the wires which control the public mind and who harness old social forces and contrive new ways to bind and guide the world. Bernays was not bold enough to tell the world who they were or who pulls the wires which control the public. But you can look into it and you can find out the next level. What we're going to talk about now is the Committee of 300. Bernays was roundly applauded for his work by the CFR, whose members voted to place him in charge of CBS. William Paley became his undergraduate and eventually replaced Bernays and acquired through knowledge of the new science of public opinion making, which made CBS the leader of the field, a role which CBS television and radio has never relinquished. Political and financial control by the relatively small number, as Edward Bernays called them, is exercised through a number of secret societies, most notably the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, and perhaps even more importantly through the Venerable Order of the Saint Knights of John of Jerusalem, an ancient order consisting of the British monarch's hand-picked executives chosen for their expertise in areas vital to the continued control of the committee. The Order of Saint John of Jerusalem, published in 1986, described the order in the following manner: it is therefore not a secret society, except its purposes have been perverted in the inner councils, like the Order of the Garter, which is a prostituted oligarchical creation of the British royal family, which makes a mockery of what the Sovereign Order of St. John of Jerusalem stands for. St. John of Jerusalem was part of another one of these interlocking groups of the Knights of Malta. So we'll take a break, come back, more on the other side, and we're really getting into all the depths of the different groups of and that are interlocked in this tree of tyranny of the New World Order. This is The Global Reality. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Stay with us. Back here with you on The Global Reality on this Thursday edition of the show. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Thank you for being with us. We continue to go through some of these various interlocking groups of the New World Order power structure. So I want to continue here. And it says that, as an example, we find that the atheist Lord Peter Carrington, who pretends to be an Anglican Christian, but is also a member of the Order of Osiris, including groups like the Freemasonry, installed as a Knight of the Garter at St. George Chapel, Windsor Castle, by Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth II of England, or the black nobility Guelphs, also head of the Anglican Church, which she thoroughly despises. Carrington was elected by the Committee of 300 to bring down the government of Rhodesia and sign over the mineral wealth of Angola and Southwest Africa to the City of London, control and wreck the Argentine, and turn NATO into a left-wing political organization beholden to the Committee of 300. Another strange face we see attaching itself to the Order of St. John of Jerusalem is that of Major Lewis Mortimer Bloomfield, the man who helped plan the murder of John F. Kennedy. We see photos of this strange man wearing the cross of Malta, the same cross worn on the sleeve of the Knights of the Order of the Garter. We have been so brainwashed that we believe that the British royal family is just a nice, harmless, colorful institution, and fail to realize just how corrupt and therefore highly dangerous this institution called the British monarchy. The Knights of the Order of Garter are the innermost circle with the most corrupt public servants who have utterly betrayed the trust of them in our nation and their people. The Knights of the Order of the Garter are the leaders of the Committee of 300. And, of course, they made, was it Prince William, I think, last year, they made him Order of the Garter. And, of course, they made Poppy Bush Order of the Garter in the 1990s as well. It says that when I did my research in the Order of St. John of Jerusalem some years ago, I went to offer to talk to one of the masters who is a specialist on ancient and modern British traditions. He told me that the Knights of the Garter are the inner sanctum, the elite of Her Majesty's most venerable order of St. John of Jerusalem. Let me say this is not the original order founded by the true Christian warrior Peter Gerhard, but it is typical of many fine institutions that are taken over and destroyed from the inside. From Oxford, I went to Victoria and the Albert Museum and gained access to the papers of Lord Palmerston, one of the founders of the Opium Dynasty in China. Palmerston, like so many of his kind, was not only a Freemason, but a dedicated servant of Gnosticism. Like the present royal family, Palmerston made a pretense of being a Christian, but was in fact a servant of the New World Order. It says that many of the venerable gentlemen were responsible for overseeing the Prohibition era in the United States from Canada, where several of its members supplied the whiskey ferry to the United States. Notable among this was Committee of 300 member Earl Haig, who gave his whiskey franchise to Old Joe Kennedy. Both Prohibition and the distilleries who met the demand for alcohol were creations of the British Crown, acting through the Committee of 300. It was an experiment which became the forerunner of today's drug trade, and the lessons learned from the Prohibition era being applied to the soon-to-be legalized drug trade. Canada is the route most used by the Far East heroin suppliers. The British monarchy sees to it that this information never becomes public. Using her powers, Queen Elizabeth rules over Canada through the Governor General, who is the Queen's personal representative and down the line to the Privy Council. Opposition to British rule is suppressed. Canada has some of its most restrictive laws in the world, including the so-called hate crimes laws imposed on the country by its Jewish members in the House of Lords in England. At present, there are 4 major trials in various stages in Canada involving persons charged with hate crimes. Anyone who dares to try to show proof of the control of Canada is immediately arrested and charged with so-called hate crimes. And this is what's moving here. This is why they never want you to find out how much power the Vatican has. And this is why they've always put the Jews out in front so you can blame them. And eventually you look what the hate crimes bill is going through in this country. That's what they want to do. This is why you've seen people like Louis Farrakhan come out recently talking about the Rothschilds and how the Jews are all in control. This is a setup, folks, and they're using Farrakhan, and Farrakhan is a Knight of Malta as well. They're using Farrakhan. Oh, you didn't know that? Yeah, he's Jesuit. He's Jesuit trained. You didn't know Farrakhan was involved with these people as well? Oh, yeah. They're using him out there to help put in these hate crimes bills. So anybody that starts discussing the New World Order eventually will be rounded up and put into a prison for talking about the New World Order, because it's going to be a hate crime, because just like they did to David Icke in Canada a few years ago, the ADL tried to say that every time that David Icke talks about shape-shifting reptilian lizards, he's really talking about Jews, which is about the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. No, when David Icke talks about reptilian shapeshifters, lizards, he really means reptilian shape-shifting lizards, okay? It's not a code for friggin' Jews. I mean, I'm sorry to have to inform you of that. It's not code. He really believes they're reptilian shape-shifting Jews. I mean, reptilian shapeshifters. He doesn't believe that they're Jews. God. Oh, man. Wow. This stuff is so ridiculous. Oh, man. Unbelievable. These people, man, they just don't stop. It's amazing. It says that testifying to the truth of this statement is the fact that the Committee of 300 set up the International Institute for Strategic Studies under the auspices of the Round Table. This institute is a vehicle for the MI6 Tavistock black propaganda and wet jobs, an intelligence cover name for denoting an operation where bloodshed is required. Nuclear and terrorists which go around the world and press for dissemination, as well as government and military establishments. Members of the ISS include representatives of 87 major wire services, press associations, as well as 138 senior editors and columnists drawn from international newspapers and magazines. Now you know where your favorite columnist gets all his information and opinions from. Remember Jack Anderson, Tom Wicker, Sam Donaldson, John Chancellor, Mary McGorry, Seymour Hersh, Flora Lewis, Anthony Lewis, and etc.? This information provided by the International Institute for Strategic Studies, especially scenarios like those prepared to blacken President Hussein and to justify the coming attack on Libya and condemn the PLO, are all especially tailor-made for the occasion. The My Lai massacre story published by Seymour Hersh came straight out of the IISS, the Institute for Strategic Studies. Just in case we wrongly suppose that men like Hearst do their own research work. Exactly. The idea of bringing in the International Strategic Studies Group arose at the 1957 Bilderberg meeting. We recall the Bilderberg Conference was created through Reading and others, and through MI6 and the Royal Institute of International Affairs. So we're coming on a break again here in just a second. We're going to stop right there and we'll pick back up. I thought it was important today with all this stuff that's been going around, but the Bilderberg group meeting going around and going through all these interlocking groups, whose really foundations all go back to the Vatican, although there's various things about it, but control. It's just not a one-sided thing, folks. More on the other side. Stay with us. This is The Global Reality. Back here with you on The Global Reality Thursday edition. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Thank you for being with us. We're talking about a lot of information today with various interlocking groups, how these all nexus back into the real control power of the priest class, and all leads to Rome. All roads lead to Rome, as usual, ladies and gentlemen. And that's what we're back here. And I also got some information I was finishing up from yesterday that we're going to get into later on the broadcast as well. But nonetheless, let's get back into this right now as we speak. It says that the idea came from Alistair Buchan, son of Lord Tweedesmere. Buchan was the chairman at the time and a board member of the Royal Institute of International Affairs and a member of the Round Table, reportedly very close to the British royal family. This was the same conference that welcomed Labour leader Dennis Healey to its ranks. Others in attendance were Francois Duchesne, whose mentor, Jean-Monnet Duchesne, ran the Trilateral Commission under the tutelage of H.V. Dix and Tavistock's Columbus Center. Among the governing council of this gigantic propaganda opinion-making apparatus is included the following. The Frank Kitson, a one-time controller of the IRA Provisionals, the man who started the Mau Mau insurgency in Kenya. Lazard Perez, represented by Robert Ellsworth. N.M. Rothschild, represented by John Loudon. Paul Nietzsche, representative of the Schroeder Bank. Nietzsche has played a very prominent, substantial role in matters of arms control agreements, which have always been under the direction of the Royal Institute of International Affairs. Stansfield Turner, former director of the CIA. Peter Collis-Very, representing Penguin Books, Royal Institute of International Affairs, represented by Andrew Schoensberg. Columnists and reporters represented by Flora Lewis, Drew Middleton, Anthony Lewis, Max Frankel, Daniel Ellsberg, and Daniel Ellsberg. I've heard of that guy. I've never heard that name, Daniel Ellsberg, before. Well, he's represented in the Trilateral Commission, representing some of these Committee of 300 types. Henry Kissinger, Robert Bowie, a former director of CIA's National Intelligence Estimates. But the name of the song is, that's by a band called The Waybacks. The Waybacks, yes. Flowing from the 1957 Bilderberg meeting, Kissinger was instructed to open a roundtable office in Manhattan, the nucleus of which consisted of Haig, Ellsberg, Hamperin, Schlesinger, McNamara, and the McBundy brothers. Kissinger was directed to fill all executive positions in the Nixon administration with roundtablers loyal to the Royal Institute of International Affairs and therefore to the Queen of England. It was no accident that Kissinger chose President Nixon's old hangout, the Hotel Pierre, as his center of operations. The significance of the roundtable Kissinger operation was thus, on orders from the Royal Institute of International Affairs Chairman Andrew Schoensberg, a block was placed on all agencies involved in intelligence, preventing them from giving information to President Nixon. This meant Kissinger and his staff were getting all intelligence, foreign and domestic law enforcement information, including FBI Division 5, before any of it was released to the president. This made certain that all MI6-controlled terrorist operations in the U.S. would have no chance of being leaked. By working this methodology, Kissinger at once established hegemony over the Nixon presidency. After Nixon was disgraced by the Kissinger Group and hounded from office, Kissinger emerged with unprecedented power such as have not been equal before or since Watergate. Some of these seldom enumerated powers include the following. Kissinger ordered National Security Decision Memorandum No. 1 to be drafted by Halperin, who got the actual wording directly from the Royal Institute of International Affairs through roundtable circles. I mean, my God, folks, This country's been ensconced in the socialist one world order takeover for decades now. I mean, you know, yes, Barack Obama represents the final culmination of this, but I mean, my God, they've had these people from these roundtable groups, the Milner's Road Roundtable and the Cecil Rhodes Roundtable. These people have been ensconced. I mean, this is one of the things that's been interesting about my work in the Council for National Policy is finding out how they formed all these secretive think tanks on both the phony left and the phony right. It's unbelievable to see, really watch how they did this. The memorandum appointed Kissinger as the supreme U.S. authority, chairman of the verification panel. All SALT negotiations were directed from here using Paul Warnke, and a nest of traitors inside the arms control mission at Geneva. In addition, Kissinger was appointed to the Vietnam Special Studies Group, which oversaw and made evaluations of all reports, civilian and military, including intelligence reports coming out of Vietnam. Kissinger also demanded and got oversight of the 40 Committee, a super-secret agency that has the task of deciding when and where to initiate covert actions and then monitors the progress of operations it sets in motion. Meantime, Kissinger ordered a blizzard of wiretaps by the FBI, even on his closest assistants, so as to give the impression that he was on top of everything. Most of his circle were told that wiretaps were on them were enforced. This nearly backfired when an MI6 operative by the name of Harry Brandon was ordered wiretapped, but was not informed by Kissinger. Brandon was doubling as a reporter for the London Times, and Kissinger very nearly got thrown out because nobody does this to the London Times. The full story of Ellsberg's break-in and the subsequent Watergating of Nixon is too long to be included here. Suffice to say, Kissinger had control of Ellsberg from the day that Ellsberg was recruited while at Cambridge. Ellsberg had always been a hardliner in favor of the Vietnam War, but was gradually converted to a radical leftist activist. His conversion was only a shade less miraculous than St. Paul's Damascus Road experience. The entire spectrum of the new left in the United States was the work of British intelligence MI6 acting with roundtable assets that included the Institute for Policy Studies. Just as it did with all countries with a Republican base whose policies had to be changed, LPS played a leading role, even as it does today in South Africa and South Korea. Much of IPS's activities are explained in IPS Revisited, published in 1990. Through a series of the International Policy Institute for Policy Studies, the IPS, acts like the stoning of Nixon's motorcade and the large number of bombings, a climate of deception was effectively created, which led a majority of Americans to believe that the United States was under threat from the KGB, the GRU, and the Cuban DGI. The word went out that a lot of these imaginary agents had close ties to the Democrats through George McGovern. It was, in fact, a model disinformation campaign for which MI6 is justly famous. Haldeman, Ellsberg, and Nixon's closest aides had no clue as to what was happening. Hence, a fury of statements emanating from the White House that East Germany, the Soviet Union, North Korea, and Cuba were training terrorists and funding their operations in the United States. I doubt whether Nixon knew very much about the IPS, let alone suspected what it was doing to his presidency. We suffered the same kind of disinformation during the Gulf War when word went out that terrorists of all stripes were about to invade the United States and blow up everything in sight. Exactly. This is one of the key ways in which they formulate enemies. And they leak these out to the intelligence groups, and they get them believing there's an actual threat. Then they create the threat. Then they create the pretext, and boom! Next thing you know, you've got an event on your hands. So you can get people to get behind anything. And so let's continue here. One of the sorriest slip-ups of the Minority Council was its abject failure to expose the dirty role played by Intertel, the Corning Group's ugly private intelligence agency, which we have already met, who leaked a lot of Watergate material to Edward Kennedy. Private intelligence agencies like Intel had no right to exist in the United States. The individual who most deserves the title of traitor and who's most guilty of sedition is General Alexander Haig. Haig is also a Knight of Malta. This desk man office colonel, whose paper shuffling career did not include commanding any troops in battle, was suddenly thrust upon the scene by an invisible upper-level parallel government. So we'll talk more about this on the other side of the break. Interloops here, really getting into the heart of the New World Order. This is the Global Reality. Stay with us. Back here with you on the Global Reality. We're on the Oracle Broadcasting Network. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. SecretRightMovie.com this website if you'd like to get a copy of my newest film, The Secret Right Volume 1, which is out now. Those are shipping out, and we hope you'll get a copy and get those out to your friends and neighbors and let people know about the other elements within the New World Order that haven't got a lot of coverage at this point. So we're hoping to expose all elements and to really expand the vocabulary. I think the vocabulary of what the elite and the New World Order and all this stuff is, I think that vocabulary has been very limited up to this point. I think it's been intentionally limited up to this point by the factions. I mean, hell, man, when you look into these people, when you look at how many, Knights of Malta and Jesuit people we've got running around that are ensconced in the Patriot and Truth movement, I mean, 2 + 2 is 4. So, you definitely see that, there's a reason why the vocabulary for this type of research at this point has been very limited in scope. And as usual, it's up to the individual person to expand the vocabulary in their own knowledge base. I'm just trying to do what I can to try to facilitate everybody's own individual quest to expand their own vocabulary for what this stuff does. I certainly don't pretend that I can teach you everything there is to know. I don't know. I'm just trying to learn my own role in all this, and just do what I can to try and facilitate the broadening of the vocabulary. That's really what I try to see. I see as my role, because I didn't see that as my role when I first started doing this. But as I started to learn more and more about how we are being restricted by, the highest elements of these people, is within the Patriot movement and what all else, it really made me think, okay, now it's time to start talking about this. So let's get back into this right now. The individual who deserves the title of traitor who's most guilty of sedition is General Alexander Haig. Haig was a product of the Round Table. He was noticed by Round Tabler Joseph Califano, one of Her Majesty's most trusted Round Tablers in the United States. Joseph Califano's legal counsel of the Democratic National Convention. Even more damaging, Califano's memorandum contained full details of transcripts of wire conversations between Nixon and the re-election committee. All this before the break-in occurred. Califano should have been indicted on a score of federal charges. Instead, he got away cleanly with his criminal activity. Sanctimonious Samuel Ervin refused to allow Fred Thompson, minority counsel, to introduce his highly damaging evidence of the Watergate hearings on the spurious grounds it was too speculative. On Round Table orders, Kissinger had Haig promoted from colonel to 4-star general in the most meteoric rise ever recorded in the annals of United States military history, in the course of which Haig was in the course of which where did I leave off? In the course of which Haig was leapfrogged over 280 senators and generals from the NATO countries in the United States. When the news of his appointment reached the Soviet Armed Forces High Command, Marshal Orgov recalled his top 3 Warsaw Pact generals, and from the Poland and East Germany, and there was much merrymaking, clinking of glasses, and quaffing of champagne until we went well into the night. Although Haig's tenure as commander of NATO forces, the professional elite cadre of Soviet armed forces, men who have ever been anything else but professional soldiers, held Haig in the utmost contempt and openly referred to him as the office manager of NATO. They knew that Haig owed his appointment to the RIAA, the Royal Institute of International Affairs, and not to the United States military. But before his military promotion took him out of Washington, let it be known that Alexander Haig, in conjunction with Kissinger, all but destroyed the office of the President of the United States and its government. The chaos led by Kissinger and Haig in the wake of Watergate has never been chronicled to the best of my knowledge. On the insistence of the Royal Institute of International Affairs, Haig virtually took over the management of the government of the United States after the April 1973 coup d'etat, bringing 100 roundtable agents chosen from the Brookings Institute, the Institute Policy Studies, and the Council on Foreign Relations. Haig filled the top 100 posts in Washington with men who, like himself, were beholden to a foreign power. In the ensuing debacle, the Nixon administration was torn asunder, and the United States along with it. Thrusting aside the pious platitudes and posturing of the defending of the Constitution, Senator Samuel Ervin did more to change the United States than anything Nixon was alleged to have done. And the United States has not yet recovered from the near mortal wound of Watergate, a Committee of 300 sponsored operation conducted by the Royal Institute of International Affairs, the Roundtable, in hands of MI6 officers based in the United States. It's very, very interesting stuff here. Kissinger and Haig followed Tavistock training manuals to the letter. The result was a distraught, confused, frightened, and demoralized President Nixon, whose only course of action, he was told by Haig, was to resign. And, of course, Alexander Haig, you go back and you look at, I mean, my goodness, we're talking about the guys who were on the ground floor. The ground floor of ensconcing the socialist one-world government into the highest levels of our United States government, the presidency, and on and on and on. But see, this is how you start to learn a lesson in compartmentalization. You understand? This is why they have the roundtable groups. This is why they have these groups that meet in secret, and then they lower and lower and lower. They put the highest. They meet in secret, then they ensconce representatives of those groups in the highest levels of government. And a lot of people wouldn't really recognize the similarities between, because it seems so radically different. But a lot of people wouldn't recognize the similarities between, say, the Nixon administration and the Obama administration. But we're really, when you look into the similarities of the people that came from the insiders that came from the secretive groups in the Nixon administration, the insiders in the secretive groups in the Obama administration, very similar. They both come from the socialist roundtables. Fourth hour around the corner. Stay with us. Back here with you. Fourth hour of this Thursday edition of the Global Reality. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Thank you so much for being with us. SecretRightMovie.com is the website if you'd like to order your copy of my newest film, The Secret Right Volume 1. We're caught up on shipping all the way up to May 1st, so those DVDs have been shipped. So be checking your mailbox. If you ordered a copy of the DVD, be checking your mailbox. You'll be getting those this week. So wait there to get those. And if you have gotten DVDs and you haven't watched the film, I'd like to hear what you thought about it. If you want to give us a call anytime here on the show at 512-904-8014, toll free internationally as well at 1-866-841-1065. Let us know what you think about the film. And we are going to be getting into a lot more information, a lot more news here in the fourth and final hour of today's broadcast. I want to thank all of our AM and FM affiliates out there, everybody blasting out across the airwaves on the World Wide Web and beyond. Thank you to KTAE 1330 AM down there in Central Texas, the Lone Star Legend. Thank you to everybody listening to us on there. So, and as well as all the other AM and FM, micro FM broadcasters out across the fruited plain. Yesterday in the fourth hour, we began talking about, and what we've done, if you're just now joining us here back on some of these other stations that carry the first and fourth hour, we were talking today about interlocking groups of the New World Order power structure. We got into some of the more things like Committee of 300, the Royal Institute of International Affairs, some of the various groups. But yesterday, we started talking about some of the more ends that pertain to the Council for National Policy. We started talking about the John Birch Society and the Knights of Malta, the Western Goals Foundation. Now, I want to continue today where we left off from yesterday in this discussion, from what we were reading from some information from Barbara Aho. And this is we're going to pick up where we left off. Where we left off was the World Anti-Communist League. Now, a lot of this information that we talked about yesterday in the fourth hour, and a lot of stuff we'll be talking about right now, is in my film. A lot of the information is in my film, The Secret Right Volume 1. And we've got a lot of the news clips pertaining to people like John K. Singlub, the World Anti-Communist League, their involvement in the South American death squads, the Contras. So if you're interested in some of this information that you hear me talk about in this hour, You can see a lot of that in the new film, The Secret Right Volume 1, at secretrightmovie.com. That's where you can get the DVD of that. So let me catch a breath and continue here. The World Anti-Communist League. In the late 70s, John K. Single became head of the World Anti-Communist League, in which capacity he engaged the services of J. Peter Grace, the Knights of Malta, and Americares to supply arms to the Contra rebels in Nicaragua. At the same time, Americares seemed to share a certain interest with the World Anti-Communist League, now directed by ex-Major General John K. Single, who in 1978 was required to resign for defying the president. And that's right, we have that clip in the film where he basically said Carter was a wimp for not giving him the neutron bomb to drop on the Koreans. And it was a big stage incident where they forced him into retirement, and conveniently, like 2 years later, he's down in South America running the Contras and running all the funding through the Council on Inter-American Security with people like Pat Buchanan and Larry Pratt. And so let's continue here. When the White House failed to win congressional support for funding the Contras in Nicaragua, Ronald Reagan enlisted the support of the World Anti-Communist League and others. American journalists have legitimately wondered how much of this money and material is in fact being provided by J. Peter Grace's Americares organization and distributed through the Knights of Malta. The World Anti-Communist League was founded in 1966 as the public relations arm for the governments of Taiwan and South Korea to continue Hitler's policy of forming a unified front against communism. According to Inside the League, it has become something far more important, instrument for the practice of unconventional warfare, assassinations, death squads, sabotage throughout the world. Not only did the World Anti-Communist League adopt the techniques used by Nazis, but the Eastern European Nazi network as well. When most people think of Nazis, two images are evoked. Aging war criminals, the Joseph Mengeles, the Klaus Barbies, living in frightened obscurity somewhere in South America, or else of disenchanted youths who in brown shirts and jackboots vandalize synagogues and march through city streets. But there is a third type of Nazi who is far more powerful, public, and dangerous than any of the other two. These are the Croatians, the Slovaks, the Ukrainians, the Latvians who carried out the German-dictated massacres, who never faced a Nuremberg, and who joined the World Anti-Communist League. The participation of these Eastern Europeans in the Holocaust remains one of the least told stories in modern history. The reason this is so simple, many of them were recruited by American and British intelligence, brought into the United States and Canada, and allowed to rise to prominent positions in their communities, and ultimately to revise history. And that's why I can't look down the chat. I see stuff like that. It cracks me up. But through their front groups and their involvement in American politics, the Nazi collaborators have blended in to become respectable. If one wants to find Nazi collaborators, it's only necessary to examine the European chapters of the World Anti-Communist League. With the creations of the World Anti-Communist League, there came into existence a worldwide network of fascism. The first American chapter of the WACL was the American Council for World Freedom. Founded in 1970 by Lee Edwards, former director of Young Americans for Freedom, the youth organization of the John Birch Society. See, folks, the John Birch Society, the World Anti-Communist League, and their ties to the Hitler Youth and the Nazis and stuff, this is what I've been trying to tell you. And these are the people that are supposed to be the purveyors of the Patriot movement. Pew, give me a break. You know, call up and ask some of these ass clowns of Patriot Radio while they're having John McManus, the head of the John Birch Society, on their show. You know, I've long suspected that a lot of these Patriot Radio guys are indeed white supremacists working on behalf of the Vatican. I mean, seriously. They like to say the N-word. They like to call people white trash. That's the kind of elitist stuff. And I've heard a certain well-known Patriot Radio host call people white trash before. And that's a statement that comes out of people that are really white supremacists. And I think that some of these people in Patriot Radio are indeed that. I believe they are. Certainly the Knights of Malta are the purveyors of groups like the KKK and others. These were all come out of out of that end. Edwards attracted many members of the new right, such as Rita Irvine and Richard Vidri, also Unification President Neil Salen. And when the American Council for World Freedom resigned from the World Anti-Communist League in 1975, due to mistrust from the Latin American League. Convicted Nazi collaborator racist Roger Pearson served as the league president for years. Roger Pearson was the head of the World Anti-Communist League, and who, of course, again, the Young Americans for Freedom was the youth organization of the John Birch Society that was tied in with the American Council for World Freedom and the World Anti-Communist League. And Roger Pearson openly admitted to collaborating with people like Heinrich Himmler and Joseph Mengele. And, of course, who brought over Roger Pearson, this Nazi collaborator? Who brought him over to America? Two key people involved in the Patriot community. Number one, Willis Carto. Willis Carto, head of the Liberty Lobby, printer of The Spotlight and printer of the American Free Press with Jim Tucker. And Howard Phillips, supporter of Ron Paul, supporter of none other than Chuck Baldwin. So there you go. This is the guy that was the head of the World Anti-Communist League, folks. Goodness gracious. Roger Pearson traveled in New Right circles for many years, formerly as an editorial associate for such mainstream organizations as the Heritage Foundation and the American Security Council. And he also warned of the dangers of whites breeding with inferior stock. Well, Pearson also, we have the news clip from ABC News where they have the quote from Roger Pearson where he says they're seeking to prove that blacks are genetically inferior to whites. And bragged to an associate about his alleged role in Nazi doctor Joseph Mengele. So let me get this straight. Roger Pearson, head of the Eugenics Pioneer Fund out of Britain, who was brought over here by Howard Phillips and Willis Carto, who prints at, American Free Press, that are supposed to be our loving purveyors of exposing the Bilderberg Group. This guy openly bragged about his role in hiding Joseph Mengele. My God, folks. When are people going to wake up? Roger Pearson also was a man who, as chairman of the World Anti-Communist League in 1978, was responsible for flooding the European League chapters of the World Anti-Communist League with Nazi sympathizers and former officers of the Nazi SS, all Knights of Malta. All these guys are Nazis. Willis Carto, Knights of Malta. Roger Pearson, Knights of Malta. My God. Pearson was a member of the British Eugenics Society. He was educated at the London School of Economics, which was funded by fellow eugenicists Henry Ford and the Fabian Society for the purpose of training an elite caste to govern a new social order. Obtaining his Bachelor of Science in Anthropology from the University of London in 1951 and his Master's in Economics in 1954, Pearson showed an early interest in eugenics. He wrote several books on the subject, including Eugenics and Race and the Race and Civilization. Pearson was relocated to the United States in 1965 by Willis Carto, head of the Liberty Lobby, and became editor of Willis Carto's magazine Western Destiny. Roger Pearson's successor as head of the World Anti-Communist League was John K. Singlem, whose high-level and government connections restored an appearance of respectability to the World Anti-Communist League. Serving on the advisory board were such notables as Howard Phillips of the Conservative Caucus, Andy Messing of the National Defense Council, and Fred Schlafly, husband of Phyllis Schlafly of the Eagle Forum. The membership also included several high-ranking members in military officers, such as Lieutenant General Daniel O. Graham, former head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, and former member of the advisory board of CASA, the political arm of the Sun Myung Moon's Unification Church. With the help of Oliver North, John Singlem enabled the Contra resistance in Nicaragua, assisting David Rockefeller and J. Peter Grace with a corporate takeover of Latin America. These people were working on behalf of David Rockefeller, and yet they want to prance around the Patriot movement claiming they exposed the Rockefellers. Give me a flipping break here. See, this is the kind of stuff here that I'm reading for you today, folks. It would have been impossible to, and I include bits and pieces of this in the film, where you can go and research and find a lot of this out yourself, but it would have been impossible to include all this stuff in the film. The film would have been, 10 discs long. In 1984, Singlem headed a Pentagon panel that urged the U.S. to emphasize non-conventional counterinsurgency warfare strategies under the Reagan administration. He also funded these Contra supply activities. A diagram found in Oliver North's safe, and we have the clip of this in the film, where they admit to this on the mainstream media. A diagram found in Oliver North's safe showed Western Goals Executive Director Lynn Rugel's name written above the words Western Goals. The note on the diagram said that Guell worked with CAUSA, a political arm of the Unification Church, and its head Bohai Pak, and made trips to Germany and South Korea. The word money was written all over Guell's name with an arrow pointing to Rob Owen, North's courier to the Contras. And also it talks about in that clip is using Israel as a scapegoat for their involvement in the Latin American death squads. That we have that clip into my film. They openly say that they found a note in Oliver North's safe that said that he was going to use Israel as a scapegoat. I mean, is that not classic for the Knights of Malta? Give me a break. Man, oh man. Arrows were also drawn from Owen's name to Guell and from Andy Messing, a private Contra supporter and head of the National Defense Council, to Western Goals. The diagram was drawn at the bottom of a letter from Fawn Hall to Phil Mabry and Randy, dated on April 18, 1985. Guell worked with John Singleb at the Singlab Freedom Foundation. Lieutenant General Graham is the director of the Defense Lobby High Frontier. He's also a member of the World Anti-Communist League, an organization which was headed by John K. Singleb. Graham is a former member of the advisory board of CAUSA, the political arm of the Reverend Sung Myung Moon's Unification Church. Daniel Graham has written pamphlets for Western Goals. Graham is a former head of the Defense Intelligence Agency. John Singleb, Daniel Graham, and Mildred Jefferson are members of the National Policy Board for the American Freedom Coalition, a political organization with extensive ties to the Unification Church. Larry McDonald from the John Birch Society, John Rees, and Sherman Enkefer were members of the John Birch Society. Sherman Enkefer served as advisory to Chile's regime under Augusto Pinochet, who's also Knights of Malta. All these guys, I mean, from the lowest levels to the highest levels, were all Knights of Malta. Unbelievable stuff. Funding for the U.S. branch of the World Anti-Communist League has come from beer baron Joseph Coors and Texas oil billionaires Nelson Bunker Hunt and William Herbert Hunt. In 1966, H.L. Hunt was approached for funding the Vatican anti-communist operations in Latin America, a project in conjunction with the Unification Church, which he later discussed in an interview. And what else did he fund? He funded the Wanted for Treason posters. H.L. Hunt funded those. Those were placed all over Dallas, Texas, November 21st, 1963, the day before the Kennedy assassination. We'll talk more about this on the other side. This is The Global Reality. Stay with us. Back here with you on this Thursday edition of The Global Reality. I'm your host, Josh Rees. Thank you so much for being with us today for the broadcast. Ladies and gentlemen, we're continuing to talk about the World Anti-Communist League and the Council for National Policy that ties into the Sovereign Military Order of Malta and the rest of it. And where we left off with a break, the funding for the U.S. branch of the World Anti-Communist League came from H.L. Hunt. H.L. Hunt was approved for funding Vatican anti-communist operations in Latin America, a project in conjunction with the Unification Church, which he discussed later in an interview. And we've got quotes from H.L. Hunt. But see, he also funded these Wanted for Treason posters that were put in Dallas, Texas, November 22nd, 1963. H.L. Hunt funded those. I'll put those in the chat room earlier. I put it in there again. And I want to read you this right now off of the Wanted for Treason posters that these Knights of Malta H.L. Hunt paid for, that nobody ever talks about in the realm of JFK research, because they don't want you to know that JFK was a Knights of Malta job in conjunction with the mob and the Vatican and the Knights of Malta. And it says, wanted for treason. This man is wanted for treasonous activities against the United States, betraying the Constitution. He is turning the sovereignty of the U.S. over to the communist control of the United Nations. I mean, if you read this, it sounds like something straight out of the Patriot playbook. I mean, it's unbelievable. But, you know, that whole speech that Kennedy gave about, secret societies, people always, in conspiratorial research, always point to that and say, oh, he's talking about the Freemasons there. Yeah, he's talking about the Illuminati there. No, sir. He's talking about the Knights of Malta is who he's talking about, and they whacked his ass. Okay? So this is where getting through this disinformation and the lies and the obfuscations comes into play. And this is a quote from H.L. Hunt on him being approached for funding the Vatican anti-communist operations in Latin America, which is exactly what the Contras were. And again, we detail a lot of this in my new film, The Secret Right, Volume 1. And this is a quote by H.L. Hunt. I was approached by look, check this out. My goodness, this blows my mind, okay? H.L. Hunt, the Hunt family, I mean, they were Knights of Malta. They funded these Vatican Contra operations. Now, listen to this. This is a quote from H.L. Hunt. I was approached by Paleo Cardinal Morella, who said he spoke for the Pope, and asked if I would supply members of my 20,000-member Youth Freedom Speakers movement, which was a part of the John Birch Society, ladies and gentlemen, who spoke Spanish, to be sent to Latin America to engage in activities. And I was told the Pope was thinking in terms of $11 million a year support for the entire movement against communism in Spanish-speaking countries. The project is now centered in New York, the Asian Speakers Bureau with the Free Pacific Association, including Riverdale Drive, another front for the Unification, Reverend Moon's Unification Church. That's a quote. He directly said, H.L. Hunt was directly quoted, ladies and gentlemen, as saying, again, I was approached by Paleo Cardinal Morella, who said he spoke for the Pope and asked if I would supply members of the Youth Freedom Speakers movement to be sent to Latin America to engage in speech-making and activities. I was told the Pope was thinking in terms of $11 million a year support for the entire movement against communism in Spanish-speaking countries. I mean, what a quote that is. And the Youth Freedom Speakers movement was a part of the John Birch Society. He straight up tells you right there that he was approached by Cardinal Morella on behalf of the Pope to ask to supply members and money and $11 million down in Latin America. But according to some of these clowns and these clips that we played over the past several days, oh no, they don't have. They're just a group that was involved with people 20 years ago. They don't have any power now. No. Oh man. Funding for the Western Goals Foundation was provided by corporations and wealthy John Birch Society members. A primary benefactor being Nelson Bunker Hunt, another major funder for Western Goals, was industrialist Roger Milken, a member of the John Birch Society and board of directors for W.R. Grace and Company, and Enduring Milken Research Corporations, and also funded Western Goals. And now the next section is entitled The Council for National Policy. Nelson Bunker Hunt's membership in the John Birch Society is mentioned in Ominous Politics, with reference to the Texas billionaire's contribution to the moral majority. Hunt, whose Birch Society background is documented by Conway and Siegelman in Holy Terror, also made a contribution of $1 million to the moral majority in 1981. In the same year, William Herbert and Nelson Bunker Hunt provided the startup money for the Council for National Policy, a highly secretive coalition which represents the entire spectrum of new right corporate executives, TV preachers, and former high-ranking government and military leaders. The Council for National Policy is considered the primary coordinating body and funding conduit for Christian right projects. Nelson Bunker Hunt, who was president of the CMP in 1982-1983, is among several of the John Birch Society Western Goals Foundation principals and associates who also served on the newly formed CMP Board of Governors. Singlob, Graham, and Jefferson were also members of the Board of Governors of the Council for National Policy. And other Western Goals Foundation members who were on the Board of Governors included Chairman Unkefer Hans Stoneholtz, Robert Stoddard, and the group's financial backer, Nelson Bunker Hunt, was on the CMP Board of Governors, as was Larry McDonald, who was the head of the John Birch Society. You know, that clip we have in the film from Crossfire with Larry McDonald, Tom Braden, and Pat Buchanan, these guys were ensconced in the Council for National Policy at the very beginning of it, and they're talking about conspiracies in the CFR and the New World Order as if it's a conspiracy theory, and arguing about it and using divide and conquer. We have that clip in the new film. It's an amazing clip that really proves how far back controlled opposition on the subjects of the New World Order has been going on. That's really what clip is. Oliver North has also been a member of the CMP since its inception. Howard Phillips of the World Anti-Communist League Board of the Conservative Caucus was also on the Executive Board Committee of the CMP. Andy Messing Jr., United States USAR retired former chair of the Conservative Caucus, also sat on the board of the Council for National Policy and led the National Defense Council Foundation. Gell worked with CAUSA, a political arm of the Unification Church, with its head Bohai Pak, and made trips to Germany and South Korea. J. Peter Grace of the Knights of Malta was also the head of the U.S. chapter of the Knights of Malta, was on the board of Prodemsa, the Friends of the Democratic Center in Central America, and also a member of the CFR. So isn't that amazing? You had J. Peter Grace, who's the head of the U.S. chapter of the Knights of Malta. He was also the Board of Governors of the CMP and also a CFR member. And yet we're told that the CMP is a junior CFR and that they were made as a right-wing counterpart to the CFR. But yet one of the top guys, the guy who headed up the U.S. chapter of the Knights of Malta, was a member of the CFR and head of the CMP? Uh-huh. Yeah, junior CFR, huh, buddy? Yeah, you're right. We know who you're covering up for now, Jones. We know. More on the other side. Stay with us. Back here with you on the Global Reality on this Thursday edition. I want to thank you so much for being with us. And we thank you so much for joining us. We're going to continue talking about the Council for National Policy and its ties into the Knights of Malta. That's huge, though. J. Peter Grace of the CFR, head of the Knights of Malta, and head of the Board of Governors of the CMP. And, of course, William Simon as well. William Simon was CFR. Him and Prescott Bush are also members of the Knights of Malta. I was on Prodemsa's National Council. Both Prodemsa and the Knights of Malta were involved in efforts to support the Contras and private sector funding opposition groups in Nicaragua. Simon, who was Treasury Secretary under Richard Nixon, was also the chairman of the Nicaraguan Freedom Fund, a fundraising organization set up in 1985 by the Washington Times, a newspaper owned by the Unification Church. Well, the Scottish Rite and the York Rite are two different things. The Scottish Rite branch was the branch that was set up by the remnants of the Templars, and the York Rite branch was the branch that was set up from the Germanic Illuminati lines that were the Saxon-Coburg Gothas and the bloodlines that spread up into Europe and took over the crown. So really, Mystic, you're really just talking about 2 degrees of the same thing. I really would think it would be hard to say one is more powerful than the other one, because in reality, they're really branches of the same tree. But at least that's just my take on it from the research that I've done, or from the stuff that I've looked at. I hope that helps. Because you really have 2 different factions of the same thing that spread up into different parts. You understand? So it really boils down to who formed it. Certainly, the York Rite is the most powerful in England. And certainly the members of the York Rite are ensconced within the highest levels of government in the crown are definitely York Rite members, yes. If you're talking about the British aristocracy and the intelligence, MI6 and the rest of it, yes, York Rite is definitely most powerful. So it really depends on what branch you're talking about. In America, it's different. In America, certainly, the Scottish Rite has its power ensconced. The Scottish Rite is more powerful in the United States than the York Rite, but the Scottish Rite is not more powerful than the York Rite in England. But really, they're branches of the same tree. But it just one is really in control of the United States, because originally what the Scottish Rite was, when they came to America, they were really in charge of when you read some of their old documents, it'll say Southern jurisdiction. That's what they mean, is they were really in charge of the southern half of the United States prior to the Civil War, and the York Rite controlled the North in the whole North-South. So that's how that whole thing worked. Yeah, I was confused about that for a long time myself until I started doing more research into how the groups worked and how, especially prior to the Civil War and also prior to the formation of the United States itself. So that's really how you get into that. But yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, they're really both pretty much the same thing. Well, let's get back into this now. William Simon was Knights of Malta who was on the Prodemsa National Council. Both Prodemsa and the Knights of Malta were involved in efforts to support the Contras and their private sector opposition groups in Nicaragua. Simon, who was Treasury Secretary under Richard Nixon, was also the chairman of the Nicaraguan Freedom Fund, a fundraising organization set up in 1985 by the Washington Times, a newspaper owned by the Unification Church. Regarding his creation of the Washington Times, which received an award from the CMP In 1988, the Reverend Sun Myung Moon stated in 1981, listen to this. This is in 1991. This is a quote by the Reverend Sun Myung Moon. He says, "No matter how proud Americans might be, making noise all over four corners of the world, that is bad. They will fall down. God has made it so that Americans have no choice but to bow down. A new America is about to take off." Following Reverend Moon, from this time on, the next point is the revival of the Christian church. Father Moon does not regard this as his own responsibility. This is America's responsibility. To support that father created the Washington Times. What? Wow. What in the hell is that? I mean, my goodness, folks. Start to understand what's going on here now. Read that quote that I just put in the chat room. That's the Reverend Moon. No matter how proud Americans might be, making noise all over the four corners of the world, that is bad. They will fall down. God has made it so that Americans have no choice but to bow down. A new America's about to take off, following the Reverend Moon. Well, he didn't just anoint himself the Messiah. Our government anointed him the Messiah. We have the Fox News clips in my new film, The Secret Right, Volume 1. All this stuff, if you want more information on, it's all in my new film. We have the news clips where they inaugurated him in Washington, D.C. Goodness gracious, that's a hell of a quote right there. William Simon was connected to two other think tanks that were influential in policy information in the early years of the Reagan administration, the Heritage Foundation, the American Enterprise Institute. Simon is also a member of the elitist right-wing policy formation, the Council for National Policy. Frank Shakespeare was U.S. Information Agency Director of Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty. And, of course, who runs Radio Liberty now? Dr. Stanley Monteith, a loving Patriot Movement follower. During the Reagan administration, he served as ambassador to Portugal from 1985 to 1987, and then as ambassador to the Vatican. Chairman of the Heritage Foundation, he served in executive positions in communication industry for more than 30 years and was the former president of CBS Television. These are all guys that we're talking about here that are members of the Council for National Policy, but they're just a junior CFR, and they don't have any power. Don't focus on one group, everybody. You know, as some of those people will tell you. Dr. Edward Teller, father of the hydrogen bomb. Council for National Policy member. Hungarian-born American physicist who became the architect of the hydrogen bomb. During World War II, he's a member of the Manhattan Project. He was also CFR and on the board of governors of the Council for National Policy. Teller was a member of the Citizens Legal Defense Fund for the FBI and ad hoc advisor to the Western Goals Foundation, and a member of the Council on Foreign Relations and member of the board of governors of the CNP. He also worked on the Manhattan Project. He also worked on the Star Wars Strategic Defense Initiative under Reagan, and he also went to Arco Oil and met with Bernard Eastland on behalf of the Defense Department to figure out military applications for the HARP facility. Goodness gracious. Now, but again, the CNP guys, they don't run anything. Nah. They don't have anybody powerful in there. No. Look away, look away. Look at the CFR in the Bilderberg group. Don't look over here. Don't look at this CNP. No. Another major benefactor for the Council for National Policy is 33rd degree Mason Richard DeVos, president of the Amway Corporation, who also funded the Aspen Global Challenge Institute. DeVos served as judge for the Templeton Prize for Progress in Religion on the board of directors of 33rd degree Mason Robert Schuller Ministries and trustee of 33rd degree Mason Gerald Ford's Foundation. Rick DeVos is also a member of the Newcomen Society and the Round Table. Nelson Bunker Hunt, financier and executive officer of the Religious Roundtable, Campus Crusade, and the John Burke Society's main funder. And Jesse Helms and Tom Ellis are director of the Pioneer Fund. So that's how these guys all tie into eugenics. More on the other side. Final segment around the corner, folks. This is the Global Reality. Stay with us. Back here with you. Final segment of this Thursday edition of the Global Reality. I'm your host, Josh Reed. Thank you so much for being with us. And we are back here. Final segment. Final segment. We've been talking about the Council for National Policy, the World Anti-Communist League, the John Burke Society, all these ties and how every single one of these are Knights of Malta guys, how they've been ensconced within the think tanks and the socialist roundtables that came out of the London School of Economics on the rest of the stuff. Now, I'd like to play this audio clip from you from a couple of days ago. This is from the Alex Jones show, and this is his response to people that have been calling him and asking him about this group, the Council for National Policy. Now, a lot of what we've talked about, and again, a lot of this stuff is available in my new film, The Secret Right Volume 1. You can go to secretrightmovie.com today, and you can order a copy of that film and get them out to people and learn more about this group. A lot of the information we talked about is in there, but I want to play this clip so you can hear his take on it. Here it is.
All right, George, Steve, Josh, and others, I'm going to get to you in a moment. I have looked more into this Council for National Policy because I keep getting emails and calls about it, and people saying, I've heard your part of it, or I've heard Ron Paul's part of it, or I've heard this guy's part of it, that guy's part of it. So I knew I'd heard of it before in association with Blackwater from some professors and people we'd had on. And so I went and looked it up. It's kind of like a junior CFR. You know, they have lots of these things that have, Robert's Rules or wherever where you don't talk about what goes on in the meeting. And I went and looked at it. It's something from the 80s where, they went out and co-opted the preachers and went out and co-opted talk show hosts and went out and co-opted, Oliver North was involved and all of these people. And then when I look at the list of people that were involved in this, I know most of them have even come out and, this was the 80s. It's easy in 2009 to go, look at this group. They were being funded by the Hunt brothers and they wanted to bring back, right-wing Bill of Rights Constitution. And Hillary's given speeches about it, I discovered. That was what her whole vast right-wing conspiracy was about. And, of course, there's a vast right-wing conspiracy. That's the phony right-wing co-opting conservatives in this country and also trying to get power in the political process. That's how all these groups work. But and we always explain, we don't get too upset and obsessed about even the Council on Foreign Relations running everything. We explain that's a pyramidal structure where most of them don't even know what the bigger picture is, and they've been co-opted into this good old boy club. Trilateral Commission's a lot smaller. It's pretty much all insiders. Bilderberg, total insiders. But there's all these other groups. But I mean, the endless obsession with, part of a right-wing group 25, 30 years ago. Meanwhile, all hell's coming down on us. The bankers are taking over right now, and they're trying to get us to fight off of left, right.
Trying to get us to fight off of left, right. Let me tell you something. Nice try there, Jonesy. Nice try. How somebody can say, I don't believe in the false left-right paradigm, and yet say somebody's trying to fight off left and right when we already know that there is no left and right. It's all exposed. These people are there on both sides of this phony political spectrum, but they create science to get people roped into it, to cause division, divide and conquer as usual. So unbelievable there, and I think that really just says it all. Not really much more for me to add to that, but let's continue and finish up our information that we had concerning the CMP and the rest of this stuff. Nelson Bunker Hun, financier and executive officer of the Religious Roundtable, Campus Crusade, and the John Birch Society, and main funder and second president of the CMP, and Jesse Helms, who was a director of the Pioneer Fund, the Eugenics Foundation, and the International Association for the Advancement of Eugenics and Ethnology. Lord Malcolm Douglas Hamilton's deceased husband, part of the British aristocracy, was brother and host of Rudolf Hess when in 1940 Hess made his secret flight to England. Carol Quigley's History of the Rhodes Roundtable, a.k.a. the Cliveden Set, admitted to the Society's appeasement policy during the taking back the Treaty of Versailles. And the Belmont Brotherhood documents that the founding JBS National Council was entrenched in the Eastern establishment in its purported to despise. Nor is its progeny, the Council for National Policy, a conservative anti-communist organization, but rather a globalist organization, anti-American and unpatriotic in the extreme. Noting the curious crossover tendencies between the right and the left and the World Anti-Communist League, authors of Inside the League offer the following insightful analysis. Now listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. This is key to debunking what he just said about people trying to expose the Council for National Policy are trying to make people fight off between left and right. Let me tell you, I'm going to prove to you right now what a fraud that is. Listen to this. The first enemy for both political extremes is the center. Both ultra-leftists and ultra-rightists have the same primary objective: to polarize the country, to implement the breakdown of the governing system, and ultimately to create a situation of chaos where armed conflict will be between the right and the left, the center having been discredited by its failure to prevent it. Little wonder that terrorist after terrorist and terrorism expert after terrorism expert have agreed that the purpose of both red and black terror is to destroy the open democratic forms of liberal government and replace them with something elitist and totalitarian. Rightist terror seeks the brutal intervention of repressive forces. Leftist terror seeks the same, believing that only complete repression will bring a self-satisfied, quite bourgeois to a flashpoint, a revolutionary critical mass. Now that's key. That is key. The first enemy for both political extremes is the center. Both ultra-leftists and ultra-rightists have the same primary objective: to polarize the country, to implement the breakdown of the governing system. That's exactly right. That's from the book Inside the League that details the World Anti-Communist League. If this is the objective of the World Anti-Communist League, then it goes a long way toward explaining the strange alliances that it's formed. It is this very pursuit of international polarization and its ability to embrace openly leftist elements in an anti-communist cause that have led many to speculate about the League's true nature. Some have even suggested a secret sponsorship of the League by the Soviet Union or other communist governments, employing it as the ultimate agent provocateur. The idea may not be as absurd as it first sounds. The open antipathy, and in some cases hatred for the United States and Western democracy that has been found in the League are outlooks that could be manipulated by the Soviets if they haven't been already. And the facts concerning the Royal Institute of International Affairs and the Council on Foreign Relations be accepted, it will be seen that the proper study of political mankind is the study of power elites. Without nothing that happens can be understood. These elites, preferring to work in private, are rarely found posed for photographs. And their influence upon events has been therefore deduced to what is known as the agencies they employ. There are dozens of such agencies, and financial support received from one or all three of the big American foundations, Rockefeller, Carnegie, and Ford, and provides an infallible means of recognizing them. The real conspiracy is neither exclusive communist nor fascist, but elitist, inexorably moving society through a progressive deconstruction and redefinition to a third-way society in which a partnership of government and business will subjugate and control an enslaved workforce to serve its own purposes. That's the key. That's the key. That is the key, folks. All these groups, left, right, are all working together to form a partnership of government and business to subjugate the control of an enslaved workforce to its own purposes. That's what this whole fraud of this whole thing Ron Paul's putting out there about, oh, we got to audit the Federal Reserve. They are going to end it. We're moving towards a new world monetary system where the Federal Reserve is not going to amount to a hill of beans. It's a dinosaur. It's gone. We're moving into a cashless society where your credits for your government job are going to be put on your credit card, on your government enslavement card. And if you don't work for a job, you don't get credits. That's the bottom line, folks. That's our show. SecretRightMovie.com and MySpace.com/Global Reality Show if you want to support us. My name is Josh Reeves. I love each and every one of you. See you back here tomorrow, 11 to 3 Central Standard Time. You guys have a great rest of the night. Stay tuned for Alex Ansari. Take care. And doing that at another day. Maybe we'll do it tonight. I don't know. We'll have to say. We'll see what's on Mike's table and see if he's around. If he's into the show. Maybe he'll be on there tonight. We'll have to see what happens. But if Mike is doing the show tonight, doesn't have anything else booked, then we'll probably be doing that tonight. I'll just have to talk to him and see what happens, and then just check MySpace tonight or something. If you're my friend on MySpace, and I'll put out a bulletin on that. But nonetheless, let's get back into some news. But yes, I watched that film, The Knowing, a couple of weeks ago. Very interesting film there. The Palladians at the end and whatnot. Yeah, very interesting film. I suggest everybody check that film out. Yeah, very interesting stuff there. The Illuminati scaring the you-know-what out of you every day. Right. Public service announcement. But Well, I mean, this is ridiculous. The bill, the American Clean Energy Security Act, would place a limit on heat-trapping gases, and for the first time, reduce fossil fuels by boosting energy efficiency and requiring more electricity to be produced from renewable sources. While these goals are endorsed by President Barack Obama, the legislation faced opposed from the fellow Democrats in coal, oil, and industry states, jeopardizing its chances of making it out of committee. And while these goals are endorsed by President Barack Obama, the legislation faced opposition from fellow Democrats in coal, oil, and industry states. And look, I mean, you know, there's no reason. It's just there's no reason why anybody should buy into this whole global warming hysteria anymore. I mean, it's ridiculous. And you know, I mean, I'm wondering how they're going to try to neutralize the great cooling that's going on. You know, how they're going to try to explain that away. But of course, you know, with these chemtrails and whatnot and trapping the heat down at the ground level, I guess that they're able to do that. But I mean, I tell you what, I don't know if anybody's noticed. I don't know if it's been this way where you live, but where I live over the past, pretty much since the outbreak of the deadly swine flu, it's been they've been graying it out almost every day here. Very little sunshine. We had a little bit of sunshine yesterday, and that's about as much as we've had in about 3 weeks. It's been crazy, and there's been amazing chemtrail spraying. I mean, they've really been really whiting it out here. And they had to change it from global warming to climate change, right? Because nobody's buying that, then that it's getting warmer. They had to change it to climate change because that's what's going on. But it's going to be funny to see how they do this. You know, it's going to be funny to see how they're able to negate this. Because, I mean, it's getting out there, you know, and people are starting to figure out what's going on. It's amazing how many people are chemtrail aware now. That's, I mean, that's amazing to me. And, of course, you know, about a month ago we had that story where it said, you know, Obama is now saying that they may geoengineer the climate. They may spray substances into the atmosphere to geoengineer it to save us from global warming. Of course, we know they've been doing that for years. But you see how they're preemptively now going to try to find a way to admit that they're doing it? Because there's a lot of people that are chemtrail awake now. I mean, I know so many people that don't know, really don't know anything about, you know, the stuff that we talk about on these type of shows and you know, New World Order research and anything. But boy, you know, they figured it out about chemtrails. And you know what? Chemtrails was really an issue for me that I was able to wake up a lot of people with to other issues. It was really a wedge issue for me to show people, hey, you know, look at what's going on here. Certainly, I mean, my dad, I tried to slowly bring my dad into a lot of this stuff throughout the years and try to get him to look at it. Because at first, you just wouldn't want to hear any of it, you know, especially the 9/11 stuff. Then I showed him more and more and more, and he started looking at it, and I caught him out one time a year or two ago. I caught him out. He was out telling the neighbor about Building 7. You ever see that Building 7? You ever seen that thing? You don't think that thing came down by itself, didn't you? They didn't even hit it with a plane. And I caught him out telling the neighbors about the chemtrails one day, you know. But the chemtrails really are an amazing issue because, I mean, you look at that and you just, all you really have to say to somebody who doesn't know what's going on is, look, do you think that's a commercial airliner flying to go see Grandma and Grandpa? I don't think so. But the different things about that is the fact that, you know, these things where you're able to see, you know, X patterns, grid patterns. These are things that didn't exist, you know, 10, 15 years ago. Certainly, we started seeing chemtrails around, you know, 1999, right around that time. But really, I mean, I'm somebody that's always, you know, looked at the sky and I always kept my eye on what's going on up there. Always, since I was little. So, I mean, I can remember, I look at pictures back when I was a kid and you see these clouds and stuff. You're like, man, where did those skies go? We don't see those skies like that anymore. Blue skies with big puffy cirrus clouds. I mean, those are gone. And now it's just turned into this gray, goopy mush. You know, it's ridiculous. All right, more on the other side, folks. This is the Global Reality. Stay with us. Back here with you on the Global Reality on this Tuesday, Thursday. I just don't know what freaking day it is. Michael Vale. Oh, man. That's funny. Guy cracking me up coming back from the commercial. No, Lee Rogers came in and said that somebody had on somebody from the Eagle Forum and Chuck Baldwin all in one show. And then Michael Vale said, that's as bad as bringing on Kissinger and Z-Big in one show. Oh, man. That's so funny. I mean, look, here's the thing. We played those clips, right, yesterday. And my thing is that if people are lobbing accusations about you or asking questions, I would say that maybe the best thing you could probably do would be to tone down a little bit your associations with those type of people that would, you're being accused of associating with. I just think that would be personally, my rule of thumb. But I guess maybe not. Oh, man, this stuff just never ends. But nonetheless, Ventura says Colin Powell is a war hero while Cheney ran and hid. Former Minnesota Governor Jesse Ventura laid in Dick Cheney on CNN on Monday night for, among other things, supporting waterboarding and maligning a war hero. Oh, Powell's a war hero, huh, Ventura? Well, he's also a 33rd degree Freemason. I don't trust Jesse Ventura as far as saddens me is how many of these Kool-Aid drinking patriots have been buying into Jesse Ventura. And next time he runs for office, that they're going to be, getting behind this guy. Unbelievable. I think we do have some audio of this. Let's see if we can play some of this audio of this clown, Jesse the Turd Ventura here. Okay, maybe not. I love how right when you're going to play something, it won't work. That's always convenient, isn't it? Here we go. 1 second.
How's Obama doing? It's too early to tell, Larry, really. In my opinion, George Bush is the worst president in my lifetime.
Have an opinion.
I will. And he's the worst president in my lifetime. So President Obama inherited something I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. 2 wars, an economy that's a borderline depression. So it's far too early to judge him 100 days in. I think if you have me back about 2 years from now, I can give you a much better of how he's doing.
He poked fun at himself at the White House Correspondents' Dinner Saturday night. Let's watch.
Finally, I believe that my next 100 days will be so successful, I will be able to complete them in 72 days. And on the 73rd day, I will rest.
Okay, so the video appears to be hung up. I don't know what the hell's going on with this today. Here we go. Now it's playing again.
Very likable.
Oh, yeah, admit.
Okay, well, every time I go to it, it just stops. So we won't play any more of that. But nonetheless, here's the thing. Ventura says it's, he's defending Colin Powell. And this guy's all over the friggin' Patriot radio, and you're supposed to be, liking this guy. Colin Powell's a 33rd degree Freemason. He signed us into the South American Treaty, which effectively brought us into the North American Union. So, Jesse Ventura, you can kiss my white rear end as far as I'm concerned. It's just amazing. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live edition of the Global Reality right here on the Oracle Broadcasting Network. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. This is the Thursday, May the 14th, 2009 edition of the broadcast. Glad you all could be with us for this Thursday show here. And, boy, we can tell you what, we got a lot of news today. Big old gigantic honking stack of news today to get into. Ladies and gentlemen, here on the show today, and we are going to get into all of it. Yesterday, towards the end of the show, I was reading the very extensive amount of research pertaining to the John Birch Society, the Western Goals Foundation, the Knights of Malta. And I've got some of that I want to finish up later in the broadcast today, as well as I want to get through all of that. So we'll finish that today. And who knows what else we'll get into. Thursdays, well, it's always an open show. But tomorrow's Free For All Friday, so that's the show you don't know what's going to happen. But nonetheless, we'll have wide open phone lines for you today throughout the duration of the broadcast at 512-904-8014. Toll free internationally as well at 1-866-841-1065. And those are the numbers to get you up on the air. They're posted up at oraclebroadcasting.com, where the chat room is open as well today. And there's lots of chatters in there. Lots of people starting to file in for the show. So big shout out to everybody in the oraclebroadcasting.com chat room. I see Cordy in there. I see Sexy Face in there. I see Mystic Politics in there. I see Donna Van Meter in there. I see Ben Jovi in there. So we'd like to see Karen's in there as well. There's Karen. So we'd like to see all you in there as well today in the chat. And we'll be getting into lots of stuff, lots of interesting news stories today. I don't even know where to start. We've got so much news, so much to talk about and to get into. So I'll just be going through here and picking and choosing through some of my news to talk about today on the show. So also a quick update on oh, there's Doug. Dirty Dougie. Doug, are you playing hooky? Tell the truth, son. Are you playing hooky, Doug? I always think when I see my boy Dirty Dougie in the chat room, I'm like, somebody's playing hooky. But nonetheless, tons of news to get into today. But quick update. Yesterday, we sent out a whole another batch of Seegerite DVDs that people had ordered. So we're caught up on shipping all the way until May 1st. So everybody that ordered up until May 1st, your DVD has been sent out. So I only got just a few left. Everybody's who's ordered this month, yours hasn't been sent yet from May 1st on, but those will be being sent out sometime in the next week. So everybody's got a Doug says, shh. Oh, busted. Nonetheless, I probably shouldn't be saying this blasting out over the airwaves where Doug lives, should I? Oops. Doug, I'm sorry you're sick today, my friend. Sorry, I didn't know you were sick there. Doug's sick. Yes, he's deathly, gravely ill. He may have the swine flu. Sorry, Doug. I didn't mean to imply that you may be playing hooky. I know that you're sick. Thank you. There you go. So, but nonetheless, we got a lot of stuff to get into. But I saw this the other day, and I didn't cover this. It seems that the GOP is playing. GOP Go's playing Tea Party sequel. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, once was not enough. You thought it was over. Tea Party 2, Electric Boogaloo, coming. This time, it's personal. So now another teabag party's coming. Hoping to recapture the grassroots energy of last month's Tea Parties. Republican Governor Mark Sanford, the Bilderberg Council for National Policy member of South Carolina. Imagine that! Wow. Well, these Tea Parties, we knew they were funded by all these Council for National Policy types like Dick Armey and the Heritage Foundation. Just everything that's been ensconced within the Council for National Policy for years. And here we are yet again. So Mark Sanford and Rick Perry will host a teletown hall meeting Thursday. It's being dubbed Tea Party 2.0. Oh, great. That's just wonderful. But yeah, I do need to mention that. Yesterday I became an uncle. Last night, my brother Jake and his woman Mandy, she gave birth to a brand new little girl, and there's now a 8 pound 2 ounces, 17.5 inches, and a new Reeves has been brought into the world, Mackenzie Lynn Reeves. So big shout out there to my new niece, and that's awesome. So and she very cool. Got to hold her and all that stuff right after. It's amazing how cognitive she was. I mean, babies can't see; they can see nothing but light and sound and whatnot when they're, immediately born. But it was amazing. I mean, she wasn't even crying. She was very calm. Just really just kind of looking around. I've never seen a baby act like that. It was really amazing. So there you go. So that's awesome for me. And again, more, this just really very cool to see that, and to see the continuation of life happen. But nonetheless, yeah, I just want to mention that briefly. And and another quick note. Last night I was supposed to be on the Midnight Rider program with Mike Chambers. A lot of you may have tuned in to hear me on that program. And when I got home from the hospital, I noticed it was a rebroadcast. They were having some serious storms last night. I looked at the weather radar, and the whole entire state of Oklahoma was covered in this big red blob of storms. And I know they had some tornadoes in Missouri, in western Missouri, that killed some people. So, so that's what it is. And I'm sure me and Mike will be rescheduling that.